If it hadn't been for you, I would be now in someone else's digestion.
You know there's something you should know, so I'm gonna tell you so. Don't sweat it. Forget it. Enjoy the show. Yeah.
Greetings, party people. Welcome to Critically Acclaimed!
Yay!
The podcast where highbrow and lowbrow collide.
No!
Yep, that's what they do.
Ah!
We are the highbrow, we are the lowbrow, we are everything in between. My name is Witney Seibold. I am a film critic of, well, I would say some note, but I'm just on the internet, really. I'm a film critic on the internet.
I know you right now. Here you are.
I don't have a cool nickname, so you can just call me Witney Seibold. And I have a dashing co-host.
Ooh.
Why don't you introduce yourself, dashing co-host?
Because what more could I possibly need?
He needs no introduction.
Yeah, then we move on. No, my name is William Bibbiani. I'm also a film critic for the internet, and everybody calls me Bibbs. And this is one heck of an episode of Critically Acclaimed. We're going to talk about the Oscars, which were announced last week, but our show comes out on Sundays.
So we recorded right before the Oscars. You saw them, then listened to our show and thought, why didn't they talk about the Oscars?
Sorry. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to review a whole bunch of new movies, including A Wrinkle in Time, Strangers, Pray at Night?
The Strangers, Pray at Night.
Gringo, and The Outsider, and we're also going to be...
And Veronica as well.
Oh, apologies. Yes, Veronica.
Veronica.
There's
Betty is not in it, just Veronica.
Oh, that's okay. And we're going to do, and we're also going to review
our notorious double feature.
Yeah. So every week on the Schmoville with an exclamation point Facebook page, we give everybody a poll, and you get to pick which notoriously bad, maybe not as bad as its reputation, but notoriously bad.
At the very least, notorious.
Yeah, people have heard about it and they've heard bad things. You get to pick which one we'll review, and then we pair it up with a good movie or a classic movie or something else to sort of let them bring out the best and worst in eeach other. And you guys hate us because this week was... Was this the worst one we've ever done?
It's down. I mean, The Love Guru was kind of a chore.
Love Guru was a chore. Space Jam was like just the worst in its construct.
Yeah, we plus we kind of knew what we were getting into with those. This one, we kind of knew.
We'd heard the stories.
Yeah.
This was... Because here's the thing, and we'll talk about this more later, but just to make sure you stick around, there are different kinds of bad. There's bad, just not particularly good. There's bad, technically you achieved your goals, but your goals were terrible, so we really can't support you. And then there's flat out incompetent, and boy, I think we got all three. It's really bad.
And flat-out incompetence can actually be very charming. There's a reason why Ed Wood has such a following. It's because people are responding to his passion. He is clearly very enthusiastic and believes he is doing something great, and that's what makes his films kind of fun to watch.
But when you combine that sort of incompetence with a sort of mercenary pandering, this only exists to make money.
Yeah.
You run into a very thick slice of hell.
And thank you, dear listeners, for choosing the tastiest, thickiest slice of hell.
We love you anyway. Let's
we
move
do
on.
love you.
Okay, so the Oscars. The Oscars were announced. We had our yearly Oscar wager between Witney and myself.
We sure did. And you did quite well.
I did the second best I've ever done on an Oscar prediction. I got 21 out of 24 categories right a few years ago. This year I got 19, and you got a very respectable 16.
16 is fair.
16 would win most office pools.
Maybe so.
I think 16 is a very... We both did rather well. And if I hadn't... You voted with my heart for Best Director and Best Picture, I would have. I
was about to say you whiffed some of the bigger categories, but I whiffed all of the tech ones.
Yeah. So let's run down real fast. Some of these are going to be pretty quick because it's basically
Yeah.
But let's talk about
some of the good, some of the bad. Happy to see that Get Out did win for Best Original Screenplay.
Yes, I was hoping it would win more than that, but my God, that's a great award, and they totally deserve that in a really killer year in that category.
Yeah, a lot of good screenplays in both of the screenplay categories, and I can't be upset with those ones.
Yeah, I think Get Out is a remarkable screenplay, and every time you watch that movie, you notice new nuances, and they're all there on the page because they're dialogue, they're situational. It's a fabulous screenplay, and I think there's two kinds of people in the world: people who are recognizing how great Get Out is, and people who need to see Get Out again. Because I think if you're only really looking at it as a superficial thriller, I think you're missing out on a lot of some really clever writing.
To be fair, it still works as a darn good superficial thriller.
Oh, absolutely.
Just on that level, it's still really well done.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, is that it works on many different levels. I think that's the great. And the more you watch it, the more you realize all the levels it works on.
Yeah. There's not any sort of one category where I was really outraged. The Shape of Water won 4 Academy Awards, and I think the most any one film won this year was 4. I think
it was
I think 3 films won 2 films won 4 each.
I'm never a big fan of the Oscars when there's just one film that does a huge
that kind of sweeps,
like Titanic or Lord of the Rings, because it gets boring after a while. And listen, it's not about entertaining the audience. It really shouldn't be. It should be about celebrating the industry. So if that's how it plays out, that's how it plays out. But as you're watching it, it is boring to see the same movie win the same thing over and over again. I think it's worth acknowledging. But I also just think it's really, really nice to see people in the industry acknowledge that a lot of people did great work this year. One film doesn't have to drive the narrative. This was a great year for that.
I think it's a matter of the industry feeling about The Shape of Water the same way I do, and that I wish I were more passionate about it. I like The Shape of Water. I gave it a positive review. It's fine. I think Guillermo del Toro has done much better work. I think Pan's Labyrinth and Kronos, and I think his Spanish language films
I think Spanish language
are his best films.
I think it's fair.
I think all of his Spanish language films are better than The Shape of Water.
The one you left out was The Devil's Backbone.
And The Devil's Backbone.
Yeah,
those are all great movies.
Yeah.
Because they have sort of political underpinnings. He's saying something about Franco and the way that regime kind of leaked out into culture in many, many myriad ways.
But I think he's saying a lot of he's not political, I think, so much with Shape of Water, but I think he's very deftly dealing with a lot of social issues in Shape of Water.
He is, but they're taking down the squareness of the 1950s is hardly novel.
Well, okay, it's a cheaper shot. I'll give you that. But here's the thing with Guillermo del Toro, and it's one of the reasons why, even though if I were voting, I probably would have voted for Jordan Peele or Greta Gerwig, I'm really happy he has an Oscar. I think he's a very inventive and imaginative filmmaker, and I was thinking about it, and I was looking over his filmography, and I don't like all of his films equally. There isn't a film of his that I don't at least like. Or at least think is interesting, I don't think he's ever completely made oh, what a piece of shit. He's always made an interesting movie, no matter which one you like best.
I suppose not, but when he starts going for the really kind of deep cut genre stuff, he's made some that are just middle of the road.
My thing with that is when you look at
Hellboy 2, Pacific Rim, Crimson Peak.
I like all those movies, even Blade 2. But here's what I like about him. I think it's interesting because a lot of filmmakers have kind of the same sensibility, and whatever genre they're working in, they're just going to put their own stamp on it. And that's fine. You're
thinking of Tim Burton, right?
Tim Burton's a perfect example of this. Whatever movie Tim Burton's making, he's making the Tim Burton version of that movie.
Right.
You hear Tim Burton is doing Alice in Wonderland, you have an idea in your head of what that's going to look like.
Well, that's been, to brief aside, that's been Tim Burton's thing for a while now. It's what property that already has a little bit of Tim Burton in it can we attach Tim Burton to? And he was going to do that stop motion animated Addams Family, and I'm so mad that fell through.
That probably if he had a good script, that would have been the best movie ever.
Yeah.
Listen, when he's got a great script, Tim Burton is great. I have no problem with a stylist. Guillermo del Toro isn't a stylist. Guillermo del Toro actually has a completely bifurcated personality. He has this incredibly sensitive side where he wants to do these very sweet, thoughtful, imaginative, unusual, grim fairy tales. And he's a dork. And every time he does a movie about giant robots or killing or vampire hunting or whatever, his sensibility is so much broader. You know what would be the coolest thing ever? Guillermo del Toro makes a Santo movie.
Guillermo del Toro should make an El Santo movie.
Or at least a luchador movie. That would would be the best luchador movie ever, because I think that's part of his sensibility. I think he's okay with broad entertainment being really broad, and I think that turns some people off, and I totally get it, and I think sometimes he does it better than others.
Yeah.
But I like that, and I think he brings a really good, flavor to that.
Of his broad entertainments, I like Hellboy the best.
The original Hellboy.
The first Hellboy. Hellboy 2, not so much.
I wish I could combine them. I wish I could take all of the imaginative production design and the monsters and the bigness of Hellboy 2.
And somehow put that into the cogency and solid screenplay of Hellboy 1.
Yeah, and also take Myers out of Hellboy 1.
And take Myers out.
He's useless.
Nobody cares about Myers.
Worst character ever.
We've named a phenomenon after that character.
Yeah.
But yeah, it won Best Picture, it won Best Director. I too am glad that Guillermo del Toro has one. I see this as sort of a make good for Tim Burton, because Tim Burton was never nominated for any above the line stuff. It was always technical
animated
stuff.
feature.
Animated feature.
Yeah,
he won.
that's respectable.
That's true. That's
yeah,
fair.
but like a monstrous stylist and a monstrous.
But yeah, he made
filmmaker.
Some of the biggest movies of all time. He's one of the most aesthetically striking filmmakers of all time, and he's made some legit great dramas and stuff like Big Eyes and Big Fish and Ed Wood. So,
well, here's what we're talking about: Guillermo del Toro.
I know,
someday Tim Burton hopefully will get his due.
I'm seeing a narrative in the way the Academy tends toward the type of filmmaker that Guillermo del Toro is, and Tim Burton is his immediate antecedent. I'm sure I could, if I studied a little bit, I could find some other precedents.
Another thing I'm really, really happy about was that Blade Runner won 2 Academy Awards, including Best Visual Effects, but most importantly, Best Cinematography, Roger Deakins.
Who has been nominated 120 times.
120 times. Look it up. No, it's like 13 or 14 times, and he never won. And he shot some of the best-looking movies ever.
He worked with the Coen brothers. He shot most of the Coen brothers.
He did
and they
Shawshank
all look
Redemption.
great, don't they?
He's incredible, and yeah, it was absurd. And it's one of those things where you look at it, and almost every year he lost. It's like, I understand that was a tough competitor. That sucks. But like that it happened so consistently was a recurring gag. And I'm glad he won for Blade Runner 2049, a movie which I think is a little divisive, and you and I actually disagree on how good it is. I think it's brilliant. You don't, and that's fine.
I think Roger Deakins' work is great.
His work is incredible. He gives
I think the special effects are just fine.
I think it is one of the most beautifully realized worlds outside of the original Blade Runner. And there's the thing, Blade Runner is Valerian, which should have been nominated for at least visual effects.
At least, come on, guys!
It's so absurd. Like, there's so many bad movies that have been nominated for best visual effects. Come on, there was a gag. Someone was talking about a visual effects artist's luncheon or guild event or whatever, and the VFX artist from Valerian was like, "When we were making Valerian, we thought it would be impossible for anyone to love this movie more than we did," and we were right.
Aww.
Let's see what.
Hey, listeners, see Valerian.
It's got legit problems. So do a lot of movies you like. Be honest. There's a lot of movies you like that, like, okay, that actor's not great or whatever.
There are movies I adore to death that have problems, like obvious problems.
I think we like movies for their positive qualities, and I think we love them for their flaws.
Yeah.
If you love a movie, you're willing to forgive some stuff.
Asymmetry is where beauty lies.
Let's see. Anime feature film was Coco. Okay. Costume designs Phantom Thread. Original song was interesting because I actually wasn't terribly familiar with most of them. Like, I saw Mudbound, but I honestly didn't remember the song playing into it very much. I didn't see Coco. I thought the song that was nominated for Call Me By Your Name actually was the lesser of the songs.
The Sufjan Stevens.
Yeah.
Or Sufjan. Maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Marshall had a good song. This Is Me was good. But here's what I'm going to say, man. I sometimes I wish they would just award the Oscar for Best Original Song to whoever gives the best performance at the Oscars.
And that was for This Is Me.
This Is Me. No, This Is Me and Mighty River. Mighty River. Okay. Honestly, Mighty River and Marshall, those were great performances. Those were like stand up and cheer performances. But This Is Me was a real crowd pleaser. I can totally see it.
Well, and the singer, oh golly, I forgot her name, but the singer, she was also the one from the movie.
Yeah.
Was just so elated to be singing that she actually started to cry during her performance.
Oh, so good. When you made Mary J. Blige cry, and she's nominated against you, like. You're great. No, that's all there is to it.
I'm glad This Is Me didn't win because it's not that great a song.
I would have been fine if it had.
I would have been fine.
They're a hell of a lot worse Best Original Song winners. Right. It's actually, you look at the history of that. It's
super uneven.
It's super uneven. It ranges from some of the best songs ever written to what?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. All right.
I always hope
weird.
the fun one wins, like That Thing You Do or Blame Canada, and it's rarely the fun one. But then Lose Yourself won, and that was really great. I remember when Barbara Streisand said, "And the winner is Eminem." It's like, this is a weird world we live in now. Yentl just gave an Oscar to Eminem.
The 3-6 Mafia has as many Oscars as Martin Scorsese. Interesting.
And Kobe Bryant now.
Listen, there's some people who won Academy Awards this year whose win was controversial because of shit they did. That sucks. I have nothing to contribute about that other than, that sucks. We're just going to move on.
Well, speaking of the politics of it, this was a year when Jimmy Kimmel got up and said, he actually commanded the audience, make your speech political. You have a platform. He pointed to all of the stars and said, this is your chance.
He said,
get as political as you want up here.
He said, we're not going to play you off, which I noticed towards the end they started trying to do it a couple of times.
Well, because people got up and nobody made a political speech at all. They all just thanked their agents like usual.
Credit goes to Frances McDormand, who, again, I don't think she was in the best movie, but I think she was fantastic in it. And
she deserves that. That's fine.
And I think years from now, when we look back on the Best Actress category, we are going to look at this year as one of the all-time great lineups.
Yeah.
In terms of every single performance is amazing. Even because you look at some lineups and it's like Meryl Streep is on there for Florence Foster Jenkins, and you're like, she's really good in it, but could it have gone to anyone else?
Yeah.
It feels like she's there because she's Meryl Streep. It's a recurring gag. I'm sure Meryl Streep makes it
but
herself.
Her performance in The Post, however,
is one of her all-time greats.
Is really great.
And honestly, there were brilliant performances that got left out. So this is one of the all-time great years in that category.
I was really mad about Florence Pugh, the actress from Lady Macbeth, which is a film nobody talked about.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite films of last year.
A bunch of
this Madame Bovary-esque story, and she was this young actress, and she's so good, and nobody talked about her.
A lot of my favorite performances from the decade were just, I think they came out a little early or whatever, but I just feel like the Oscar pundits didn't talk about them enough, so people wrote off their possibilities. I think if we had talked more about Kate Beckinsale's performance in Love and Friendship, she could have not only been nominated. I think she could have not only been nominated, I think she could have won.
If there was an actual push for Love and Friendship.
I think they really could have won that. Also, Rebecca Hall in Christine. Not unrelated to the Killer Car movie. There's a brilliant movie called Christine starring Rebecca Hall in which she gives, and I'm dead serious, at the end of the decade, if I do a list of the best performances of the decade,
that's one of them.
She's probably going to be in my top 5. She's so fucking good in that movie. No one talked about it. It was a crime. But I will give Frances McDormand a lot of credit. Her speech was great.
Yeah.
She got up there. I have something to say. And she fucking said it, and she's really
and she even was really tears I'm so happy. Okay, sit down. It was really fantastic.
Frances McDormand is a fucking rock star, and I love her forever.
And she mentioned the phrase inclusion writer, which everybody was like, what is that? What is inclusion writer?
Yeah,
it sounds like a failed 80s cartoon show, and it turns out that is a contractual thing that actors or big stars can enter into, which means they will only work on a certain film if it has a diverse crew.
Yeah.
If the crew is all white men, or they I think if they feel they get to be the judge, if they feel the crew isn't diverse enough, then they're not going to work on the film, and they can write that into their contract.
And I think that also applies a lot to the cast. And the thing with that is that one of the things that was brought up in one of the articles I was reading about it was, okay, so you got your big stars, and the studio's going to want big stars. Most movies have dozens of other characters. Sometimes they're only in one scene or whatever. There's no reason for that not to be more inclusive than it is.
Yeah.
It's bizarre that it's not. It's a statistical impossibility.
It's bizarre. I mean, it's bizarre that there hasn't been more diversity up to this point. That's just frustrating, and has been eternally frustrating for a century. But
and then not just in this industry,
and that's
in general.
In general, yeah. But I'm just talking about
the movies are only about 100 years old.
In closing this injustice just within the film industry, the only people who have that sort of clout, however, are the big stars.
The big stars and the biggest filmmakers.
Right. So some, I think, are going to be willing to step up.
Some already have. Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan.
Already said so. Good for him. Yeah. A few others. I just don't remember.
Golly, I like that guy.
He's so cool. And he's so talented. Michael B. Jordan.
But...
Did you hear the Retainer story about Michael B. Jordan?
What's the Retainer story?
Someone was watching Black Panther, and she told her orthodontist when she was getting her retainer repaired that she was so marveling at how sexy Michael B. Jordan was that she broke her retainer. The story
She's just clenching her teeth in sexiness, and she breaks her retainer.
And her orthodontist told the story completely anonymously. Didn't say who it was.
Okay.
Like online, just like this is a funny thing that happened. I'm not sure how cool that is, but whatever. He didn't out her.
If he doesn't out her, that's fine.
But she said it was her.
Oh, she outed herself.
And she became a news story, and Michael B. Jordan's following her on Twitter now, and he offered to pay for her retainer.
Oh, that's sweet. I'm sorry it was so sexy. And good guy, he's pretty sexy in that movie.
Yeah,
I tell you, that
yeah.
hairdo he's got.
He's
geez.
cool. Anyway, I digress. So you were saying the huge digression there. But you're talking about
I was just talking about. I hope more big stars that are. I hope a lot of white men step up and do that. Is my point.
Yeah,
because
it's fucked up, but they have a lot of the power. They have an inordinate
if the
amount of
industry
power.
is still giving them all these big heaps of power, then do something with that power, white guys.
Yeah.
This is your chance, to do something decent. So I'm hoping like Tom Cruise says, okay, inclusion writer.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Tom Cruise's star.
Tom Cruise,
but like
he's usually a go-to, but maybe not so much
not
anymore.
so much.
Okay. Yeah, the Oscars were kind of boring because I wanted them to be more political, and they weren't.
Yeah.
Even after Jimmy Kimmel, who strangely enough is like leading the charge against the presidency, like he and everybody in this administration are like butting heads. The president has tweeted about Jimmy Kimmel, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And he's hosting the Oscars, and he's saying, hey, everybody, you should get up and you should say something. You should. He even said, encourage students to go on the march. He's the only one who talked about that march.
Yeah.
Jimmy Kimmel, nobody else mentioned it.
It was
It's
ridiculous.
like, this is a chance to do something, and then...
Yeah, it's a world stage. It's a world stage.
A billion people watching, and nobody cares.
Well, all right. Well, in any case, as with any Oscars, there was good and there was bad.
Yep.
And
Adam West was left off the in memoriam reel.
Adam West was left off. Bill Paxton was left off.
That was weird.
That was super weird.
Bill Paxton.
Sometimes because I understand with Adam West, sometimes what they do is they say, listen, they're more famous for TV, so they belong in like the Emmy montage. I'm like, I see what you're getting at. I disagree.
He's been in a lot of movies.
I disagree, but I see what you're getting at. Bill Paxton makes no sense.
No.
Bill Paxton makes sense. Toby Hooper is fucked up, too.
Toby Hooper, Umberto Lenzi, a lot of people were left off.
Then the thing is, every year, there's just so many people. And like last year was horrible for that.
Yeah.
There was a lot for that. So like, I get it, but like it sucked.
Yeah.
Anyway, I won the Oscar wager.
You sure did.
And as a result, Witney is going to have to endure his worst movie of the year all over again for your enjoyment with a free downloadable commentary track, which will be available on this podcast network.
What film is that, do you ask?
The Book of Henry.
That was my number one worst film of last year.
And it made my top 10 as well. My top 10 worst films of the year. So I'm not going to enjoy it either.
And your number one made my bottom 10. So I think we were going to be miserable either way. Because if I had won, we would have had to do Transformers: The Last Night.
But that's longer. So
this is true. So I guess maybe we won. Because Transformers: The Last Night is 80 hours long.
Whoever wins, we lose. That's the opposite of
Alien v Predator.
Yeah.
We will be doing a commentary track for The Book of Henry, which evidently has some defenders.
Some people think it's interesting enough that it justifies its own existence, and I kind of get that, but I disagree.
I think the morals are in a bad place.
I think it's
that movie.
I think it's catastrophically misguided.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen The Book of Henry, or if The Book of Henry flew under your radar, it was a film directed by Colin Trevorrow, the director of Jurassic World, who was going to do Star Wars Episode 9.
And then The Book of Henry came out.
And they say it has nothing to do with it, but I bet it didn't help.
It certainly couldn't have been a help.
It is just you watch a lot of bad movies, and we're going to watch one later today where they're horrible, but you can see how it happened.
Yeah,
you understand. Like, okay, that's no one gave a shit about this movie, on paper it could have been fine, or the concept's good, but the jokes just didn't land. Whatever, you can kind of see how they happen. Book of Henry, I have no idea why anyone ever thought it was a good idea. Everything about it makes no sense.
It's all clearly the filmmaker's dream, and we're not sure what point he was getting at. And we'll explore that. In
great detail.
Feature-length commentary track available on this network.
And if you like that, maybe we'll do more of those. Maybe we'll do more of those in the future.
Yeah. We'll see how you respond to us gabbing about a single film.
Yeah. In the meantime, we got reviews. So let's review some new films. Now, here's the damnedest thing. I kept trying to go out to see A Wrinkle in Time, Hurricane Heist, Strangers Pray at Night. I missed all of the biggest releases this week.
Oh,
and I'm
that's
really
too bad.
mad because I really want to see Wrinkle in Time. I love Ava DuVernay as a filmmaker, and it looks strange and it looked gorgeous, and I was just intrigued. I read the book when I was a kid. I don't remember it terribly well. I don't think it set my imagination on fire the way it did some people. It kind of faded into this sort of miasma of like a ton of fantasy and sci-fi books. And I know that might be sacrilege. I know it has huge fans. It just didn't blow me away. I was like more interested. This may or may not speak well of me. I was more interested in like Patricia C. Reed's Enchanted Forest Chronicles. Like that's what I was really into at that age. I digress. Those are good books, by the way. So I didn't get to see Wrinkle in Time. I really wanted to see Wrinkle in Time. You didn't like Wrinkle in Time.
I didn't like Wrinkle in Time. And I was one of the people who grew up with the book.
Okay.
I actually read the first 4 of the 5 books in that series.
You never got the 5th one?
I just never got around to it.
Weird.
I think I aged out and lost interest.
Oh,
like by then I was like 13 or 14. I just didn't care anymore.
Halfway through the last season of True Blood, I was like, you know what? I stopped caring.
Yeah, I just whatever.
I was interested, and then it just sucked for a while.
Oh, look, they're naked again. Snore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Wrinkle in Time. I liked A Wind in the Door, the first sequel, a little bit better. But yeah, the first book, written by Madeleine L'Engle in the 60s, was very much about sort of fighting negativity. And it does have sort of, looking back on it, it has sort of a human exceptionalism edge to it, which makes it feel a little bit uncomfortable to perhaps a modern audience about how...
Some people are better than others?
That conformity can only be fought by, like a certain breed of extraordinary human being.
There's the weird trend in that through a lot of sci-fi and fantasy. It has to do with a lot of chosen one fantasy. The idea that the fantasy in a lot of books, whether or not they're sci-fi fantasy, is that you and or the protagonist who represents you is special.
Yeah.
Is special and important, and I think it's...
Well, and that's something that's become especially stark in the more recent wave of young adult fiction that really exploded with the popularity of Harry Potter.
Yeah, Harry Potter is he's literally a chosen one, and it's interesting because I see... kind of some positive byproducts of that. We have an entire generation of kids who are raised on stories about how kids are gonna fix a dystopia, and I'm like, ooh, wait a minute,
let's fix the dystopia.
Oh my god, this is actually this might actually bear fruit. This is great. But you're right, there's a lot of negativity to it, and I see a lot of films and books that try to play that off and don't hit the tone right. The one I think of most is actually Brad Bird's done it twice.
Oh, with Tomorrowland and with The Incredibles.
Yeah, The Incredibles, and I think...
The Incredibles, it's a little easier to stomach.
Because they're literally superheroes, but there is this sort of tone of if everybody's special, no one is, and I think that's an incredibly reductive concept. And Tomorrowland, I honestly feel Tomorrowland might have been a little misconstrued, because I think the idea is it's challenging everyone. To be better, as opposed to saying only the best of us deserve to be in Tomorrowland. I think the idea is if everyone's striving to be in Tomorrowland, we can get there.
It read like only a certain like elite class can get into Tomorrowland.
I know.
It was like super duper Ayn Rand, that movie.
It gets there right at the end, and it pisses me off because the villains believe that.
Yeah,
that was the idea, is that the villains believe that. So that's the reason why I didn't necessarily take that away, but I rewatched it and I totally get it.
The villains believe that. The villains were the ones like who had like the cogent, like intelligent arguments in that movie.
But they were wrong, and the whole point of the movie is they're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy by believing that.
Yeah.
So no, I disagree. I think that movie's a little more interesting than people give it credit for, and I like it more than most. But I understand the counter argument. I just think it's not the only one. My point is that you're right. That's a difficult thing to swallow.
A Wrinkle in Time, the book did fold that into its narrative a little bit better, because it did point out that it wasn't just sort of like negative energy or like mean behavior that was being perpetuated throughout the universe through this like dark force that they simply called the It. It was actually a form of kind of thinking the same and conformity. And, when you're just coming off of the 1950s, that's kind of a good message to put in your kid literature.
Yeah.
And there was a great scene in the book.
Culture was a lot more, like, rigid.
Yeah, homogenous.
Yeah.
there's a great scene in the book, and it's in the movie too, where the kids land on a distant planet called Camazotz. That's where the It lives. It's sort of like the planet of darkness. And it's not like misery wasteland. It's like the sky is all this one uniform darkened color. And they start walking down a street, and all the houses are all the same. It's like an Edward Scissorhands. They're all like maybe slightly different colors. And there's a kid in each lawn, and they're all bouncing a ball in rhythm with one another.
Yeah.
And all of the moms come out at exactly the same time, and they speak in unison. And it's like the eeriest, scariest scene in the book. That scene's in the movie too, but the movie sadly seems to be really hampered by its low budget.
Really? It's super expensive.
It's super expensive, but it doesn't look it. It speeds through a lot of its scenes, and it doesn't really bother to set up like a vista we can really marvel at. So that scene takes place on a cul-de-sac, and it's maybe like 7 or 8 houses.
Oh, I see.
And we don't get the sense of like that the whole planet is infused by this conformity.
Okay, I can see that.
And indeed, the scenery shifts around the characters really often. Like, I think it was filmed on a blue screen, a lot of it. And the biggest problem with A Wrinkle in Time is that it loses interest in whatever scene it's in really, really quickly. And the scenery will just shift, and we'll expect the mood to really shift, and the music will just keep on playing, and then the music will shift, and we're rotating through moods so quickly that we're not getting a handle on anything. Now, the story, Meg Murray is a young girl. She's her father, who's played by Chris Pine, has gone missing. He and her doctor mother, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who I really love.
She's great.
They have discovered this way to what they say, fold space. They can wrinkle time and travel anywhere in the universe instantaneously using their thoughts. Like it ties into their thought waves.
Okay.
He figured out how to do this. He vanished. Now she and her family, her mom and her little brother, her adopted little brother, are alone in the house, and she's made fun of at school for this. I don't understand where that comes in.
For being alone in the house?
Like, ha, your father's gone.
Oh, like, that's just shitty kids.
Yeah.
That's one of the terrible things kids do. Yeah, that's a thing.
Meg we're constantly assured that Meg is like really intelligent and really resolute and really strong, but she's just sort of a wet blanket. She doesn't really do or say a whole lot. All of her personality traits are things that other people say she has, rather than her actually displaying any of that. Her little brother is a genius wunderkind of some kind who likes to mouth off at adults, and he is the most obnoxious actor I've seen in a movie in a long time.
Wow.
He's really awful. And they're appearing to these young kids are Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which, played by Reese Witherspoon, Mindy Kaling, and Oprah. Oprah is a giant.
Yes.
No, I mean, she's 20 feet tall.
I imagine that's how Oprah really appears before you. Like, Oprah is one of the people on this planet who is not Oprah. She is not, everyone's not Oprah except for Oprah, but she's not her. She's everything Oprah represents.
She is a demigod of some sort. So,
and you gotta love her.
And these 3 characters appear, and they're always wearing these wild dresses that are like super over designed and have this huge, like, Oprah has silver lipstick and rhinestones glued to her face, because that's what we think of Oprah.
Because it was Saturday, and that's what she was wearing that day when she got to the set.
You close your eyes, and that's what Oprah looks like.
I imagine she's amazing.
And every time they teleport to a new location, their outfits instantaneously change, which I think is a little obnoxious. But because in the book, those characters are described as kind of like trampish characters. They're dressed in rags. They're the kind of characters you wouldn't assume to be, queens of the universe.
Okay, that's a choice. I mean,
it's a choice, but I don't know. It makes the whole proceedings feel a little less relatable. Like, these gigantic fantasy creatures are the ones who are in control of all of this, and it's not about.
Well, let's look at it. I'm curious about this, because again, I didn't see it, and I really want to, and I will.
Right.
Let's look at it from a different perspective. Like, that's that way of looking at it. What if the point that Ava DuVernay is making, and she's obviously choosing to be in some respects a little unfaithful to the books. What if that is a calculated decision to create a sort of broader, grander, more sweeping experience? Does it work then in that context, do you think? Or
no, it doesn't, because the characters are supposed to be the ones who are giving information to these kids. They should be the intermediaries between the ordinary kids that we're supposed to relate to and this broader fantasy universe that we're being introduced to. So yeah, the kids go on a grand mission to find their father, who is... Okay. and fight this form of negativity. The ultimate message of A Wrinkle in Time is something a lot of people have been responding very positively to because it's about optimism.
I like optimism.
There's a lot of cynicism out in the world, and films about optimism are beloved, and people should respond to them. The negativity, like the flavor of negativity that these kids are responding to, is like the most wimpy, mealy-mouthed version of negativity. It's like the thing that makes you rude to a stranger. You know, it's not the thing that's causing wars. It's not the thing that's
causing... Isn't it a micro version of that macro problem?
I understand it's a micro version, but, you know, taking on a shadow that's infecting the universe and taking over the minds of everyone and infusing the universe with evil conformity is only manifesting itself in that girl who's mean to you at school. It seems like small potatoes.
Maybe, I don't know. But I do feel like there is a direct relation between the bigger problems of the world and the everyday problems of the world.
I understand that. The film doesn't handle that very well at all, is my point.
I'm trying to stay in the conversation here. It's a podcast, not a monologue. So you just didn't like it?
So, yeah, I didn't like it. I think the editing is the biggest problem. Just it speeds along way too quickly. It doesn't really focus on any one thing. It doesn't let us marvel at any of the special effects. And its messages of hope are kind of weak and wimpy. I wish I liked it more. And this is not a matter of me liking the book as a kid and having them alter things and me being outraged at the changes. I don't mind that.
Some of the best movies ever made are actually very unfaithful
Change it up. Be unfaithful. I really don't care. I don't have that kind of commitment to A Wrinkle in Time. I love the book, and I want to see a film version of it work, which means I want to see them adapt it. I want to see them make it work as a film, and it doesn't work as a film.
That's too bad. Well, again, I'm going to try it out, and if I disagree with Witney, I'll bring it up on a future podcast, because this was one of the films I was looking most forward to this year.
It's also really divisive. A lot of people really love it, and a lot of people don't.
That's the thing, is I've heard a lot of people whose opinion I deeply respect say that they, maybe it's wrinkly, but they actually really responded to it on a very broad level, a very emotional level. And that's exciting to me, that a movie that is, especially a movie that is made expensively for like a broad audience, can really have that broad a level of interpretation and have that varied a response. And I think that in and of itself is certainly interesting. So I'm excited to check it out and decide for myself. So
I hope you like it more than I did.
Oh, so do I. You know what movie I didn't like? Gringo.
Tell me about Gringo.
Gringo is a new ensemble comedy. If you can call it that, and it's not funny. Okay,
one of them crime comedies.
Well, there's a certain kind of comedy, and the Coen Brothers have done it a bunch of times, and I think they do it particularly well. You look at something like Burn After Reading, where it's I like Burn After Reading.
I like Brad Pitt in Burn After Reading.
I think the whole movie's pretty good, but you look at a movie like Burn After Reading as just the first example that comes to the top of my head, and it's people kind of running around, a series of coincidences.
They're all after the same suitcase full of money.
Yeah, it gets unexpectedly violent sometimes. It's a broad crime comedy with a big ensemble and a lot of coincidences. I'm sure you've seen at least a few. And it's a thing that's really easy to do badly and really hard to do right, because you have to justify all of this randomness. In reality, there's a lot of randomness in the world, or at the very least, in order to see the actual connections, you would have to be a deity. It's too complicated. But in reality, random shit happens all the time. In a movie, you can't just throw random shit on the screen, because I don't have to see a movie for that. There needs to be a reason to make this into a movie. You need to have a point to make, or a joke you're telling, or a theme you're exploring, or something. And Gringo has none of that, and that's what makes it really, really frustrating. It stars David Oyelowo. The whole cast is great. It stars David Oyelowo, Joel Edgerton, Charlize Theron,
nice,
Sharlto Copley, who is always fun in everything he's in. He's just often in bad movies. I think he's great.
He has not met a role he doesn't want to overplay.
Yeah, Thandie Newton's in it. Great cast. David Oyelowo plays a mild-mannered middle management guy at a pharmaceutical company.
All right.
His wife, played by Thandie Newton, is draining his bank account, and he doesn't know that she is sleeping with his boss, Joel Edgerton. Joel Edgerton is also this kind of shitty alpha male type who uses bad metaphors and probably isn't very good at his job, and he's planning a merger with another pharmaceutical company that will throw David Oyelowo like out on his ass, and he's gonna like end up with his wife. He's just a terrible human being.
Joel Edgerton is so great.
He's I love him as an actor, but sometimes he's in bad movies. It's a damn shame. But seriously, his movie The Gift is one of the creepiest movies in years.
Yeah,
it's so good.
I love The Gift.
He wrote it. I think he directed it too. He's so fucking good, and he's a great performance in it. I think his brother directed this, Nash Edgerton. I think they're brothers.
Yeah. And Nash Edgerton has also made several films.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not like, he's got some experience. Charlize Theron plays Joel Edgerton's co-boss, co-worker. She works with him, alongside him at the upper level of the pharmaceutical company. And she's probably got the most interesting character in the film because she is obviously kind of this femme fatale type. She's using her sexuality to manipulate other business people into doing what she wants. But she's also, you can tell she is like incredibly lonely. And that loneliness only strives her to do more horrible things in order to be seen. So I can see why the character would appeal to an actor because there's a lot to play there. Problem is, it just sucks. None of the jokes land, and the plot, once it kicks off, just doesn't really go anywhere. The plot is, they go on a business trip to Mexico. David Oyelowo finds out all this shit about his boss sleeping with his wife, about he's going to lose his job, everything's terrible, and he finally does something completely out of character for him, but he feels pushed into it. He decides to fake his own kidnapping.
Because that always goes well.
So he fakes his own kidnapping in Mexico because the company has kidnapping insurance for these kinds of business trips.
And he's going to embezzle the kidnapping insurance.
So they're allowed to pay up to $5 million for anyone who gets kidnapped from the company. Problem is, when he calls Joel Edgerton and Charlize Theron, Joel Edgerton is a shitty boss, and he let that insurance lapse. So they don't have the $5 million. So he hires a mercenary, played by Charlton Copley, to get David Oyelowo back, or kill him, because that's cheaper too. And meanwhile, a Mexican cartel is actually trying to kidnap David Oyelowo because he has access to a special new weed drug that they're making in their Mexican facility.
This sounds either great or terrible.
It does, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a movie here. Like, this can be really, really funny. Meanwhile, there's like a guy who's trying to be a drug mule, played by Harry Treadaway, and his girlfriend Amanda Seyfried is like just kind of dragged along for no reason. And yeah, all of this sounds like I can see there's some humor here, and the setups are good. Everyone is so shitty. And it's and you need characters like that in a movie like this, people who are just kind of terrible, but you need to be able to laugh at them. The problem is that we spend so much time with Joel Edgerton and Charlize Theron that they become so human that they no longer work as the cartoon characters they would need to be in order to be funny.
Yeah,
they become sad.
It needs to be fast.
Yeah, and that's something Burn After
Something
Reading
like this needs to be
does.
fast.
It's very fast paced, and a lot of the characters never go beyond caricature, because once they do, we've slowed the pacing down a lot, and we started really thinking about them as human beings, and then you can't do terrible things to them like a Looney Tune. David Oyelowo is another problem as well. I love David Oyelowo. I think he's a brilliant actor, and I was actually really excited to see him do like a broad comedy like this. I think he probably could do it. Problem is, his character is nothing. And that's kind of the point, is that he's been pushed down, but like, he doesn't have anything. Like, he wants the $5 million. What are you going to do with it? He never says what he wants. He never says what he's interested in. He doesn't even have a fantasy, like something at the end. Oh yeah, I always wanted to go whitewater rafting or visit the pyramids or anything. He never says what he wants, so I never know what I want for him. I just want I want the world to stop shitting on him, but I don't know why it's even doing that, because the movie doesn't have a point for why everything is shitty is happening. There's one brief talk where he has a conversation with Charlton Copley about how he believes in God, and Charlton Copley's like, there is no God, and then something really random happens. And I was like, oh, we're going to actually, like, it's late in the game to introduce this, but we're going to talk about how, like, there is a guiding hand and all of this weird coincidence, and that maybe people who are immoral are going to get their comeuppance, but by the time the movie ends, not everyone immoral does. So it doesn't track. It's just a whole lot of pointless shit. And it's a damn shame, because everyone in the movie is super talented.
It's a good quote for the poster. See, Gringo, a whole lot of pointless shit.
It really is. And it's so frustrating, because, again, the cast is great. I think Charlize Theron has a really interesting character I would like to see in another movie. Like, I just think she really was doing something kind of interesting. I'm trying to think of
a non-Coen movie that did this well, and I recall a couple of pretty good comedies from like the early 1990s that did this stuff, like Blame It on the Bellboy, or what was the one? Once Upon a Crime.
Yeah.
Films like that.
Well, here's
films that nobody remembers but me.
Here's one that's not as broadly comedic, but I think is underrated. 2 Days in the Valley.
Oh, there you go.
Also starring Charlize Theron. That was actually her breakout role. Yeah, that's another one with like a whole bunch of like cops and robbers and criminals kind of wandering around in sort of a Pulp Fiction way. Kind of just Nashville, but, has a sense of humor to it.
It was a ripoff of Pulp Fiction.
It's a Pulp Fiction. It's a good ripoff of Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, it came out like 96, that film.
Yeah, after Pulp Fiction, there were a whole bunch of low-budget crime comedies with like big actors or actors who used to be big who were trying to break it back in, John Travolta style. And some of them were good.
Remember Goodbye Lover?
No, I don't. I remember Truth or Consequences, New Mexico.
I saw that.
I remember
one.
Destiny Turns on the Radio, which starred Quentin Tarantino.
He was in it.
Ooh, that's how you know it's going to be good.
What was the one with Nicolas Cage, like Kiss of Death or something?
Oh, that's a different thing. That was like a noir.
Oh, okay.
That was a different. That was not that. I mean, it probably helped get made because of Pulp Fiction. But
Suicide Kings.
Suicide Kings was a bit Pulp Fiction-y. I think it was more Reservoir Dogs-y, but whatever. Who cares? Boondock Saints was kind of like that, but a bit more broadly action-oriented. Yeah, it was an interesting actual time, and there were some good movies. Oh, Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead.
There you go.
That's actually a good one if memory serves. It's an interesting time.
City of Industry.
Okay, now you're scraping the bottom of that barrel.
City of Industry is just forgettable. Nothing.
It's as interesting as the City of Industry that you've ever been to. It's like there's nothing there.
Wow, there's the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. What else is here? Nothing. It's a 7-Eleven a few blocks down.
Yeah, as I said, it's an easy genre to try to do. It's really hard to do it right, and they just didn't succeed. It's not worth it. If you really love Charlize Theron, that's what I would say. If you will just see anything Charlize Theron,
who doesn't love Charlize Theron?
But I mean, like, you would literally see anything. You've seen Sweet November 20 times. Like, that's how much you love Charlize Theron. Then I would say go see Gringo. But other than that, there's no reason.
I live in North Country.
That's a good movie.
It's pretty good.
It's a little on the nose, but it's well made. She's great. And so is Frances McDormand.
That's true.
They both got Did they both get Oscar nominations for that?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's all anybody will ever remember about North Country.
It's well made.
I'm sorry it doesn't work out. It's a pity because like you said, when those things work, they work very, very well. I really like what was it, Big Trouble. The one based on the Dave Barry novel. That one's really broad and funny, though. That's like more of a slapstick thing.
Get Shorty has that kind of vibe as well. It's on,
Well, a couple of really great horror movies came out this week as well.
Cool.
One of them was The Strangers, Pray at Night.
Yeah.
Which is the sequel to The Strangers from a decade ago. I didn't realize the original had any sort of clout or warranted a sequel, but
it came out.
Here we are.
The original The Strangers, for people who haven't seen it yet or maybe need a quick refresher, it's a very straightforward movie, but it's quite effective. It is basically a bickering couple in their house at night, and they don't realize that their home has already been invaded by creepy people with masks. And a lot of the movie unfolds with them not knowing anything creepy is going on, but like the audience keeps seeing these people in the background doing stuff. And we're just waiting for it all to come together. And it comes together, and it's pretty bleak. But its simplicity is its effectiveness, I think.
They give away the theme in the film's tagline. The tagline is "Because you were home," and that's kind of just sort of reveals the nihilism of that film.
Yeah, and listen, I think a lot of people respond to Dave White has written about The Strangers. Dave White from the Linoleum Knife podcast, which, by the way, if you're relatively new to us, we haven't had them on our show yet. We do a lot of crossovers with the Linoleum Knife. It's only a matter of time. That is a great podcast. Yeah, you should be listening to that podcast.
Dave White and Alonso Duralde are both brilliant film critics, and you should be listening to their podcast as well.
But Dave White is just absolutely terrified by The Strangers, and I know a lot of people who it just really pushes the button of just having someone in your house and you don't know that they're there. And that is a really great fear to exploit. I think a lot of the best horror movies take a simple fear and just tweak it. Just pinch that nerve.
I haven't seen that, but I have seen Michael Haneke's Funny Games, both versions.
Oh yeah. Funny Games is fucking great.
Both Funny Games are really great, and they are aggressively nihilistic.
Oh my god, I think Funny Games, the original, is like the scariest horror movie of the 90s. Yeah, it's so great.
And the remake is identical, so you could see either version. Really,
I don't understand why you identically remake your own movie, but
you make it in America with American money and make it in English. You reveal a new thesis in the way we treat violence in American films, and I think that's what Michael Haneke was getting at when he remade it.
Fair enough. I digress. But now it's been a long time. I'm actually surprised it's taken this long, because the sequel to The Strangers is kind of a no-brainer and cheap. It's not an expensive movie. Like, it's weird that it's taken like 10 years to get a sequel to The Strangers, but it built in its clout, and now it has one, and I didn't see it. Tell me all about it.
It's from the director of 47 Meters Down.
Which is a fun film.
And The Strangers is also, or The Strangers Pray at Night is actually a pretty fun film, in a film where people are brutally slaughtered. It's about a sort of a bickering family. Christina Hendricks plays the mom.
Love her.
They're out to take their teenage daughter to a boarding school. She's acted out a lot, and there's a lot of resentment in the van as they're driving. And the teenage son is trying to play middleman. The parents are worried if they're good parents. They spend a lot of time setting up these characters as they're on their trip. They pull into a trailer park that is very remote. The lights are all off. It's the down season. There are no tourists there. There's hardly anybody there.
But there is a Starfighter arcade game out there in the corner somewhere. Maybe they get really good at it.
There may as well be, because clearly the director has watched a lot of John Carpenter movies and a lot of thrillers from the 1980s, to the point where he has that same sort of Carpenter-like score, which is in a lot of new movies recently.
Some people have been complaining about that.
Still effective.
I think it's
so
great.
I don't care that it's in a lot, because it still works.
I think it's especially for horror movies. I think it works great.
This guy has clearly watched Christine 100 times, because
That's good.
There's a lot of weird homages to Christine, especially near the end with a flaming truck. But I'll get to that.
Okay.
These people move into a trailer. They're looking for distant relatives who are staying there. Somebody appears at the door in a mask. They ask for somebody who's not there. They're really creeped out. They want to walk away. They go out looking around. They come back. They're in the trailer. And what happens? They come after them with a knife. Why are they doing that? We don't know. The three killers with masks are back, and they're stalking a new family, and they're just sort of chasing them around this trailer park in this really incredibly well-filmed, incredibly well-paced cat and mouse type thriller. There's some good jump scares, but it relies more on just really effective dread and sort of how horrible it is to be running around and having these people after you. And you know right from the start, even if you haven't seen the original, that these people are just out for blood, and that they're doing it because that's just sort of their thing. That's their hobby.
I think that's my favorite thing, because I think it's easy to make a fun slasher movie.
Yeah,
it really is. You really, it's a low bar.
You think it is?
Well,
but,
there are a lot of bad ones, but like there's a lot of like middle of the road meat and potatoes. I can just watch the slasher movie and never think about it again, but we'd have a good night in. There's a lot of those. I think the best slasher movies, the ones that aren't trying to be like super weird and goofy, they have dread, and I think that's a hard emotion to capture consistently. And I respect. I think you look at like obviously the original Halloween does it. I think
we're taking
Nightmare on Elm Street does it, but like I think a lot of filmmakers can't pull it off.
Well, yeah, I think it's something we take for granted. It's like, oh, I'll just throw on Halloween. Wait, that's really hard. John Carpenter had a very specific talent in. I can't even point to what it is about John Carpenter films that get under my skin. If it's just sort of his angles, his budget, the way he edits, his use of music, whatever it is, he knows how to set up his cameras and his shots. He's just such a master craftsman that he can shoot ordinary looking scenes and have them feel sort of dreadful. I think there's a great scene in Halloween where it's just some kids walking down a sidewalk and the camera's behind them, and we see in the distance a little Michael Myers out of focus in the back. And it's I think it was Deborah Hill in that one, the particular shot I'm talking about. So he's actually smaller, so he looks further away. Yeah, because Deborah Hill was really short. So and this is something he did with no money at all. It's just something he had a canny sense of where to put the camera in that shot to make it seem really kind of nightmarish.
What he had in Halloween, and if you're not talented, you will fail at this. But like he was confident, and I think it worked. He's patient.
Yeah.
He's patient, and he knows that his setup is so simple and primal that the audience is willing to be patient too. A lot of Halloween is, we know Michael Myers is after these teenagers. We're going to watch this teenager go about her night. And if you look carefully, and you can tell the original strangers looked at the scene constantly. You look at the scene where, she gets something on her clothes. She goes out to the garage to do the laundry. She comes back and gets stuck on the phone. In the window, She goes to the car to pick someone up. And then she realizes she doesn't have her keys. She goes back into the kitchen to get to the keys. The door is open now, or something to that effect. She goes back into the car. The car is fogged up. And the second she notices that is when she gets killed. That's a brilliant sequence in Dread. My favorite bit in Halloween is actually everyone is dead but Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
And Donald Pleasance, but it's Jamie Lee Curtis's movie. And she can't get them on the phone, and one of them is across the street. Watch the scene. You got to watch the whole movie because in context, it's not going to tell.
She's banging on the door?
No.
Okay.
Just walking across the street. She knows something is up. We know exactly what's up, but she knows something is wrong. She just doesn't know what it is. That is the longest walk across the street. Like, I learned this we watched this in film school. It was an editing class. It takes longer to cross that street than it should to cross that street.
Yeah.
Because it's all build up. And is such confident, scary work. And I don't think a lot of filmmakers have the patience for that. They're worried they're going to lose the audience. It might be a lack of confidence. It might be a lack of confidence in the material. It might be a lack of confidence in themselves, the audience, whatever. But like to have the confidence and the skill to be patient. Yeah, that's dread.
The eagerness to get right to the climax, to get right to the jump scare. That's an Insidious trick.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah, where we're just gonna throw fistfuls of scary crap at you. There's integrity to that.
The Insidious was pretty good at that, yeah.
But the Stranger's Prey at Night has that patience. It has the wherewithal to wait for its big scary moments. So when they finally happen, it's really fantastic. There are some extended sequences where people are in extended peril, and you're not really sure what's going to happen and if they're going to die in that moment, and it's really great. I got to see this film with an intro by the filmmaker.
Okay.
It was a filmed intro by the filmmaker, and he filmed it in a room in his house. And everybody in the audience snickered because he starts like, "Hey, this is my film. I hope you like it." Behind him, there's a gigantic Ghosts of Mars poster. And nobody's looking at the filmmaker. Everyone is staring at his Ghosts of Mars poster. Is like, and I'm a big John Carpenter fan, and he goes on. And at the very end, he's like, "And I hope you like it, and maybe you'll understand why I have a big Ghosts of Mars poster behind me."
That's good. I'm glad he's self-aware.
Yeah, so he understood, like, I know what you're looking at. You're not looking at me. He also said something that filled us all with dread, like, right away. It's like, okay, and ordinarily I just use ordinary musical scores. In this film, I used a lot more pop music, which is something I'm not used to. I hope you guys like Jim Steinman. and we said, oh, no.
For the record, I love Jim Steinman.
Jim Steinman is the songwriter behind Total Eclipse of the Heart, and he wrote most of Meatloaf's catalog.
Yeah, all the Meatloaf songs that you know and love, those are Jim Steinman songs.
And he did all the songs for Streets of Fire,
which has one of the best soundtracks in movie history.
But he has a kind of operatic bombast, which can be a little difficult to stomach for some people.
I love everything he does. You're right, it's operatic bombast, but what I love about him, he's wordy.
Every single one of his songs, like, I'm driving through the town till the end of night, I see the sky and the fire's raining down. That's the title of the song as well.
My favorite one of those, and favorite Jim Steinman weird bit is objects in a rearview mirror may appear closer than they are. That's the title of the song and the hook. Objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than they are. It's a song about like a childhood friend who died. Like, it's such a weird song, but it works because he's so sincere. I love everything Jim Steinman does. Even when he's terrible in a great way.
Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I would do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Great song. All of these are great songs. He's so
We're living
big.
in a powder keg, giving us far. And of course, Jim Steinman appears at a really great climactic moment in this big... So it's like, he said, I hope you guys like Jim Steinman. It's like, okay, fine. Well done. You used Jim Steinman well. So I really dug it. I thought it was a pretty great thriller.
All right. Well, the next film I saw is a Netflix original.
Uh-huh.
And it is also not good. I had a bad week in the theater.
I'm so sorry.
I had a really bad week in the theater. Oh, well, I didn't see this in the theater. I saw it at home, obviously. But, all right, so this is a film called The Outsider. It stars Jared Leto as a white American who joins the Japanese organized crime, the Yakuza. Mm-hmm. Or is it the Yakuza? I apologize. I'm getting
Yakuza.
Okay. He joins the Yakuza. And he joins in the 1950s. This is like shortly after World War II.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And you would think that would mean something. You would think that, okay, so here's a story about Japanese organized crime right after World War II, and an American joins? that's a bag of worms. There's a whole lot going on there. I don't care how good he is or how loyal he is, but like, there's bound to be animosity or racism or
what would cause a white man to join the Yakuza in the 1950s, and what is going on in the Yakuza that they're taking on this white guy?
Yeah, it's the setup. I know a lot of people are troubled by the setup because why isn't he Japanese? And the setup implies that there's going to be a movie about how weird that is. It is not about that.
Oh, no.
They mention it a couple of times, but it's really just the most straightforward gangster movie I've seen in a really long time. So the plot is, it starts off okay, and I was like, okay,
so
maybe
why not
we're
just
going
have a Yakuza thriller? Why have a white guy in it at all?
There's literally no reason for Jared Leto to be in this other than they think Western audiences will watch. I can't think of it.
Geez.
Also, he's not that good in it, which is a shame because I think Jared Leto's a pretty good actor. You know, he's sometimes weird, but like I think he can be really talented. The plot of The Outsider is it takes place. It opens up in a prison. Jared Leto doesn't even speak much Japanese, but he's in there for reasons which are never totally explained. And he meets a Yakuza boss who he's trying to escape, but he's trying to escape by committing suicide, so they have to take him to a hospital and then they can remove him safely.
All right.
So in the midst
of his own suicide.
So in the midst of what he's either attempting to stage his own suicide or an attack on his life, which is the reason why he needs to leave. They're also not very clear about it. Jared Leto saves his life. Okay. And then they end up in a cell together and they hatch a plan. He's going to kill himself or appear to kill himself.
Quote, kill himself.
Well, he pulls a blade across his whole stomach. Like, it's fucked up.
Seppuku, all right.
Yeah, and Jared Leto calls the guards in time. He goes to the hospital. He's safely taken out of the hospital, and then they use their connections to get Jared Leto out. And as a thank you, they give Jared Leto a job.
All right.
Okay. That's a setup.
I've seen stuff like that before. But
the job is there is an American industry, American company or whatever that is doing business, but they're not doing business with the Yakuza. So they say, okay, they're not listening to us. We'll send in an American. And Jared Leto comes in. And the guy was just like, hey, I'm horribly racist and World War II sucked. So, yeah, we're not doing business with the Japanese. Sorry, we're just going to exploit the country. And Jared Leto beats him with a typewriter.
Okay.
And then he comes out and it's just like, I didn't kill him.
Tech appropriate.
I didn't kill him, but he's probably going to be, he's probably going to play ball from now on. And a part of me is just like, we could have done that. We didn't need you. What was the point? You being an American didn't help in that situation. And then other than a couple of moments where someone's just like, I don't like you because you're an outsider, which is a story you can tell when he's not an American, never comes up again. He's just in the Yakuza. He's a new guy. He rises through the ranks quickly. Another guy who's been in there for forever gets jealous and hatches a plot that goes really bad and gets people killed. He's told, whatever you do, don't sleep with that girl. And of course he sleeps with her.
Ah, jeez.
And there's this weird speech, and it turns out she's like the boss's sister. And again, this is the 50s.
Don't you know what is it? The 241st rule of acquisition?
Yeah,
Never sleep with the boss's sister. Always sleep with the boss.
Thank you, Ferengi.
Those were two separate rules for
Nice.
the rules of acquisition.
But, like, here's the thing. It's so weird. This is the 1950s, okay? I mean, racism is still prevalent now, but in the 1950s, there was, it was a lot more open, and, like, this would be an issue where...
It's actually codified.
You would think that would be a conversation that would be had, at least, and instead the boss goes to Jared Leto, who is sleeping with his sister, and he says, I don't mind that you're sleeping with my sister and you're white. What I do mind is that you having this sort of emotional relationship which other people can exploit and will potentially be able to harm the Yakuza.
Seems diplomatic.
Seems diplomatic. It also makes no sense because she's already that guy's sister. This is like Superman not telling Lois Lane that he's Superman because it might endanger her. She's in danger every week, Superman. Every issue of the comic you have to save her, or she saves herself from a deadly situation because that was her job.
But she's in deadly situations a lot.
That's her thing. You're not helping. You're just,
that's her thing. It's her hobby.
She's a death-defying reporter, for God's sake. She was saving her own life long before you showed up. This means nothing.
Lois Lane, what will happen if I put my hand in this garbage disposal?
Anyway,
the switch.
Shut up.
Superman.
I love Lois Lane, and I will say this: the treatment of Lois Lane in Man of Steel is one of my favorite things about that movie.
I think it's one of the only good things about that movie, that she's actually a good reporter.
She's a great... What's the first fucking thing she does?
She finds out who Superman is right
she's
away.
A good reporter. Love it. And Amy Adams is great. Love that. But yeah, so this whole movie ends up feeling kind of pointless. And again, all of those like story elements, new guy in the gang rises up too fast, other guy gets jealous, turns out to be the bad guy, sleeps with the one person he's not supposed to sleep with. How many times have you seen that?
Is there a dance-off at the end, at least?
That would have been great. I would love that, but no. It's just a nothing burger of a movie. Like, there's just nothing. It's meat and bread. Like, there's nothing, there's the only reason for the movie to exist would be to explore the premise, which is a white guy joining the Yakuza in the 1950s when such a thing would have been unheard of. Listen, it's a weird idea, but like, you got a story there.
Yeah.
Why not tell that story? There's literally, you change one bit of casting when you like meet like another character Jared Leto knew before, like during the war, because obviously he wouldn't know that guy. You change that casting, you change a little dialogue here and there, just a little, and you could replace Jared Leto with an actual Japanese character, and you'd have the same movie.
Wow.
It's a pointless motion picture. It's frustrating. And it's not even like a well-made version of a pointless motion picture. It's just sort of bland. The supporting cast is all good, but they don't get anything to work with.
We still have Seijin Suzuki movies. You can go see some of those.
Go fucking see Branded to Kill. My God.
That's a good one.
That's a great one. And lastly, I saw another one on Netflix. I saw Veronica, which actually came out last week, but I caught up with it because of what was happening around it. It came out, no fanfare, and then people started calling it the scariest movie ever made. Wow.
And people were live tweeting how terrifying it was, and they were talking about the same scenes and about how this was essentially going to, unseat The Shining as the scariest movie of all time.
Jesus.
Look, I know that's all exaggeration. I know that. But if anybody says anything like that about a movie, my curiosity is gonna be piqued.
Yeah, I want to see. What if they're right? Holy shit!
This is a Spanish film. It's from Paco Plaza, who did the Rec films.
Oh yeah. Paco Plaza's really talented.
Yeah, and here he's telling kind of a haunted house picture, a kind of a stripe we've actually seen in a lot of recent thrillers. A teenage girl, her father is absent from the family scene, and her mom is also absent because she's always working. She works late nights, she gets home early in the morning, and she sleeps throughout the day. So it's essentially this young girl's job to look after her two younger sisters and her even younger brother, who are her twin sisters are, I think, like maybe 8, and then she has a young brother's like maybe 5. And so she has to look after these 3 kids and also go to school and be a teenager and try to have a friendship with her best friend at school. Her best friend and another friend of theirs sneak off to the attic one day at school with the Ouija board during a total solar eclipse. Okay, bad idea.
When does this movie take place?
Early 90s.
All right, they still should know better. like in the 50s, you don't know better. 90s, yeah, you should know.
You should know.
Witchboard has been out for a while. You should have seen
You've seen Witchboard, right?
Witchboard's actually a pretty good movie.
But she wants to contact her absent father. They do their Ouija board, and she all of a sudden gets like a little bit of stink of evil in her immediately.
Can we write a horror movie called Stink of Evil?
Stink of Evil.
And we can put it in smell-o-vision, and it's like what? And they just you scratch it off, and it's just like lavender. Yeah, evil smells like lavender. Scary, right?
You know the ghost is around when you smell lavender. Scratch number 4. Scratch, scratch. Ah, there's evil around. Oh no.
I just like lavender. I think it sounds nice.
Odorama needs to come back.
They tried with Spy Kids 4. Nobody liked it.
Right. That was one of Spy Kids 4 is Odorama. No, maybe not. Maybe that's a bad idea. Anyway, she goes home and finds that things are getting eerie. Something is now creeping around the little apartment. And we see in the background a lot where she just sort of passes by a hallway, and we see that figure out of focus in the back. And Paco Plaza knows how to shoot that.
Yeah.
It's not just something back there. It's framed in such a way that your eye is drawn to it. And she begins to have these horrible nightmares. Scratches begin to appear on her body. Did I mention this is a true story?
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's nice.
So
I love that was good storytelling.
Thank you.
Throwing that in right in the middle. That's cool.
She just more and more stress is piled on her. She begins actually seeing this creature. Mom's not there. And of course, Paco Plaza is savvy enough to really realize that this is a story of this young girl who's essentially had to jettison her innocence because she's a parent now.
Yeah.
And is now being beset by all of these new adult responsibilities that she doesn't want.
Yeah.
There's some menstruation imagery. There's a really fantastic nightmare sequence that is actually truly terrifying.
Wow.
Where she is... I don't want to say what happens in it, but she is essentially in this nightmare sequence grievously harmed in a very poetic way that relates to the way how she's overburdened by these young people she has to look after. Yeah, watch that scene, and that scene will give you.
Well, you
nightmares.
told me I'm totally seeing this movie. So is it the scariest movie ever made? I mean, like,
well, it's not.
Okay.
Nothing that comes with the stamp of this is the scariest movie ever made is going to be the scariest movie ever made. The scariest movie ever made is going to take you by surprise.
Okay, fair enough.
The best movie you've ever seen of all time is going to take you by surprise.
I think, well, we can all... There are certain, like, cultural signifiers that make us all scared of more or less the same stuff a lot of the time. What scares you the most can be deeply personal.
Yeah.
I think there's certain movies that have a certain primal nature that they scare a lot of people that much. Like a movie like The Shining or Robert Wise's The Haunting or the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre or whatever. But yeah, like if I'm curious, just off the top of your head, what's the scariest movie you've ever seen?
Eraserhead.
Okay.
That's one of the scariest movies I've ever made.
That's okay.
Just off the top of my head.
Off the top of my head, Lucky McKee's The Woman.
There you go. That one's terrifying as well.
Left me in a fetal position, wondering if there was any good left in the universe, but in a good way.
Yeah.
The movie wanted me to feel that.
That movie is dark and brilliant.
That movie is dark as fuck.
Yeah. Eraserhead is like, that's what my nightmares look like. Is that movie? This one has that sort of nightmarish appeal, and it actually strives to be about a lot. I've seen a lot of these haunted house thrillers, and they all kind of reach for the same themes. The breakdown of a family tends to be part of it. Your family is scattered. That's the specter of that sort of breakdown is what all the ghosts represent in a lot of these haunted house movies.
Stress.
And
stress comes into the stress of family, the stress of having to have responsibilities, losing yourself.
In the midst of the housing crisis, that also is sort of folded in there. It's like, well, we can't leave this house. The financial instability is now also folded into the meaning of the ghost. Here, the specter is the absent father, and the sort of scattered family feels like it's actually a pertinent theme. And the fact that a lot of families can only survive by fracturing in the certain economic climate kind of gives this a little bit more thematic oomph. I don't know about the economy or the social structure of Spain in the early 90s, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it does feel pertinent to America today. Okay. So it actually does... It's just a really effective, really well-made, kind of thoughtful haunted house film. It's this sort of thing done quite well. It's not the best movie of all time, but it is one that's definitely worth checking out.
The thing with a movie like this is one of the things I'm increasingly aware of as I get older is that I get older, but the target demos for movies stay the same.
So we see the same thing over and over again.
But other people are seeing it for the first time a lot of the time.
That's true.
And so a movie like this, your first good, scary, haunted house movie that takes you by surprise, as opposed to something you've heard about that people have told you is scary, like Poltergeist or whatever, which can still be scary, that's going to have that impact on you. And I think that's great. And that's natural.
Yeah.
And what will matter in the long run is... Does that peak and people go like, oh, it wasn't that scary, just took me by surprise, or will this linger and people keep talking about it?
Yeah.
That's what really, really matters. But I think that's great. I think it's great that people have found a new horror movie to really like. That came from nowhere.
Yeah. Well, it came from Spain.
Well, and it came from Netflix, but still, that doesn't mean like everything from Netflix is good, or everything from Spain is good. But that's great. And I love Paco Plaza. I really do. I think Paco Plaza. Everyone loves Wreck, and Wreck is scary. I think he's more interesting than people give him credit for it. Did you see Wreck 3 Genesis?
I haven't seen any of the Wreck films, actually. This is my first Paco Plaza.
Did you see Quarantine, the American remake of Wreck?
And he did that one, right?
No. That was the Dowdle brothers.
Oh, right.
Who actually...
They're good, too.
There are actually things I like about their remake, but Wreck was one of the found footage zombie movies everyone was talking about, and it's really great. Wreck 2, another found footage zombie. Wreck 3...
Is this the one, the wedding reception film?
Yeah, it's great. So, the idea is it's a wedding reception. It's a huge wedding reception. Everyone's, dressed up, dancing, whatever. And that's the reason why everyone's filming it is because it's a wedding. Everyone's filming everything. Isn't that nice? And then zombies attack during the wedding reception. This is like 20 minutes into the movie. Zombies attack during the wedding reception. Everyone flees. And then we cut to like the kitchen and everyone's like barricaded the door. And like, oh my God, zombies are attacking. Holy shit. Why are you filming this? And we've seen this scene in every found footage movie. Why are you filming this? And the usual response is, I don't know what else to do, or someone needs to know that the footage needs to survive.
Some BS line.
Yeah, so the guy says, why are you filming this? Because people need to know. And the guy slaps the camera out of his hand, and then after that, the movie is not found footage anymore.
Like it just
like, no,
slaps the genre out of your hand.
Slaps the genre out of the entire franchise. Just no! And from that point on, it is one of the best zombie comedies of the modern era.
Oh, that's funny.
It's really funny. It's really violent. It's really cool.
When the Blair Witch Project did that, it's like, why are you filming this? Well, these are like pretentious film students, so of course they're going to keep on filming.
Yeah, they're documentarians. This is what they do.
There's kind of a poetic sense to keep on filming this dread as they're slowly going crazy and dying in the woods.
Yeah.
There's at least an aesthetic reason for that to happen. Yeah, after a while, it's like, come on, we're used to it now. Just put the camera down.
Yeah, we don't need it. Paranormal Activity got away with it because they put cameras all around the house for the most part. Well, so you always have the camera somewhere.
Well, now that cameras are so lightweight and so ubiquitous, now you can get away with that a lot more. Like, I remember in Chronicle, there was a bit where cameras kind of became his thing.
Yeah, it became a supervillain quirk.
And they could float them, so now the camera could just move dynamically like a camera ordinarily would. And so they kind of thought of an organic way to put it in there.
I thought that was clever. I actually really like Chronicle. I interviewed Josh Trank once, and I asked him, it's a found footage movie. He's like, yeah. Who edited it together? And he was like, I have no idea.
Well, that's
usually they don't. Usually it's a lesser concern.
We have actually interviewed several filmmakers who have made found footage movies, and we're like, who found the footage? And usually the response is, nobody cares who found the footage anymore. This is not some found movie. It's just documentary style. That's what we're gonna say.
Yeah, it's a question I always ask myself. Who found it? Who edited it together?
And why are we seeing this in theaters now? People are dying. This is terrible.
Horrifying. Why would you do that? This is a terrible thing to do. All right, so on our critically acclaimed scale of C+ to C-, C+ being best ever, C- being worst ever, C, what do we got?
Veronica gets a C+.
Oh, good for them.
How about The Outsider?
It's a C-. It's not a particularly passionate C- because it's not like atrocious. It's just
forgettable.
There's no reason to watch it. Okay. I can think of no reason to watch it. It's like not that good and not that interesting and really formulaic, and the point of the movie is forgotten quickly.
Yeah. The Strangers Pray at Night, also a C+.
Wow, good week for horror.
Good Carpenterian film.
Good week for horror movies. Gringo, another C-, another movie where I'm not sure why it exists. This happened to me twice in a row, where like two weekends in a row, the two movies I saw were bad in kind of the same way, even though they're in different genres, where it's just like, last week it was just like, they really didn't handle the idea of violence very well, and that kind of sullied the entire proceeding in both Red Sparrow and Death Wish. Here, I don't know why Gringo and Outsider were made. They don't have a point. It's frustrating. And then Wrinkle in Time.
Wrinkle in Time, C-. Again, I wish I had felt something.
No?
My description of it was really scattered because the film itself feels really scattered. It's just like a big jumble.
Well, again, I'm definitely going to check that one out on my own just because I love Ava DuVernay and I want to see what she does next. And maybe I'll be one of the people who disagrees. And again, if I do, we'll talk about it later.
I love her film 13th. 13th is a genius documentary.
13th is one of the documentaries that I think should be required viewing.
Absolutely.
I think it absolutely
in
should.
this country, for sure it should
absolutely.
be.
And I think Selma is one of the best biopics of the century, if not ever. I think it's fantastic.
A lot of people, however good it is, it's comforting to know that the two biggest films in theaters this weekend are both by black filmmakers.
Yes, and
Black Panther is still and with black leads.
Yeah. That's something that was not considered possible, especially on like this scale.
I liked Black Panther. I don't like Wrinkle in Time, but however you feel about those movies, the two biggest movies of the weekend are both by black filmmakers, and that's something that we should perhaps acknowledge.
I have to actually you here. Well, actually, you loved Black Panther. You did. He's all sheepish and cute.
I liked it fine.
You loved it.
So what if I loved it?
I think it's great. I'm saying enjoy it. Embrace it. It's great.
Don't look at my notebook and the big heart that says Black Panther on it. that says Mr. and Mrs. Black Panther.
There's a anime series Michelle, my wife, has been introducing me to called Sanrio Boys, and it's relatively new.
You guys have both told me about this.
Yeah, Sanrio Boys is okay. Sanrio is the company that makes like Hello Kitty. They make like cute characters and they put them on a lot of merchandise.
Chibi.
And they have a new anime series, and you can watch it on Crunchyroll, which is a great online streaming service for anime.
Just anime streaming service.
Yeah, it's on Crunchyroll, and they've done a TV series, and it's simultaneously a brilliant deconstruction of macho bullshit. And shameless marketing. Like just shameless marketing.
Named after the company, for God's sake.
The plot of the show is it's about a group of high school boys who like Sanrio products.
Okay,
that sounds really horrible and pandering, right? The point of the show is they feel a cultural expectation not to like anything feminine.
Okay.
And it actually directly confronts with, here are people who want to like what they like, but they feel absolute shame for not conforming to what is expected of them socially.
All right.
And it actually deals with that element really dramatically well. Really interesting. Like, you feel real emotions, and yet it is a shameless commercial for a product.
It seems like it would be undercut by its marketing messages.
Sometimes you have to laugh when there's like a montage of them going shopping at a store full of Sanrio products, and you have to laugh because it's just hysterically stupid.
I like the lazy egg yolk. I like the froggy.
That's an actual conversation. But here's the thing. When for a teenager, when like you are expected to fit in, to like something that just isn't like, I mean, I'm sure if you think about it, everyone can go back to a time when they liked a TV show or a toy or a song or something that wasn't popular, that everyone was making fun of, and you felt like you couldn't say you liked it especially when you were young.
Yeah,
I totally get it. I've done that myself, and I think that show actually really hits on that. So I think it's this really ironic, weird thing. And it's all about, why can't I just say I like the stuff I like? Like the stuff you like. You should. There's no reason. There's no good reason. Like, just say you like it. You love Black Panther. I love Black Panther. I think it's great.
Well, what if what you like is garbage, though? That's where it becomes kind of tricky.
Just say, you might have to say why you like it.
Yeah,
I like it because it's garbage.
Well,
I like it because it's stupid. It's fun.
This is why
Okay.
This is why I think it's okay to have what they call guilty pleasures.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think you should feel guilty about it.
I think you should. I think you should feel guilty. I think
You're an
because
asshole.
I'm actually a big advocate of guilty pleasures. I think people should have guilty pleasures, and it's okay to feel a little bit embarrassed if you know what you like is kind of trash. And I think it's okay, and I think it's very healthy to acknowledge that you love it, but that it's also kind of trashy.
I think it's healthy to acknowledge that you love something even though it's bad. Or because it's bad. We talked about it with Space Jam. A lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for that movie, and I think on an objective level, you look at that movie, it's not very good. And I'm putting it mildly. I'm being diplomatic. But I think it's possible to acknowledge that there are flaws in something that you like and like it. And I don't think you have to feel guilty for that. I think you can just say, I like the things in this that I like. And if you have a criticism about it, it's like, well, this part sucks, I'd be like, well, yeah.
No.
It's like Valerian's a great example. We bring it up all the time. I love Valerian, and people are kind of rediscovering it lately. I've seen a lot of like film Twitter talk about it. Like, I just watched Valerian, it's great. And there was like, but Dane DeHaan is really miscast. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
That doesn't ruin the film. It hurts the film. The film would have been better, I think, if he had been on the same wavelength as everyone else, or if they'd cast someone else. But that's the problem with the movie. Other than that, it's great, right? I like the rest of it. I think it makes up for the flaws. There you go. Like, boom. All right. Anyway, my point is, like the stuff you like. I disagree. I don't think you should feel guilty about your pleasures, but I think it's okay to acknowledge that the things you like aren't perfect.
Or even bad.
Or even bad. That's okay. It's okay to like them if they're bad. That's fine. It isn't. I'm going to say this. I don't like the movie we're about to review.
Okay, dear listeners, you really either hate us, like genuinely hate us, or you just like to see us suffer. Either way, we did watch the film that you voted for.
Okay, so this week, all of your poll options were for disaster or disaster-themed movies. So we had Firestorm, starring sports star Howie Long. He's trying to stop a prison break during a forest fire. It's not a very good movie. Roller Coaster, about a mad bomber who's bombing roller coasters. Just stop the roller coasters. Don't go on the roller coaster. Just stop it. What are you doing? Easy.
They closed down amusement parks.
And we had two on the list. Two animated movies about the Titanic.
And we thought those would split the vote.
Yeah, we put them on there half as a joke.
Look, there's 2 animated Titanic films. There's actually 3, but yeah.
Well, one of them has a sequel in which they go to Atlantis. It's not this one. The other one has a sequel. You picked the one that was the animated Titanic movie with a rapping dog in it. You heard rapping dog in Titanic, and you were like, jackpot. And let me tell you something. That's easy to say, hard to do. Because Titanic, the legend goes on. I'm going to say it. Objectively the worst film we've ever reviewed.
Maybe so.
As objectively as you can get in art, I think it's pretty atrociously
I think
awful.
I hate something like Space Jam more, but...
Space Jam and its construct seems more sinister. Titanic, legend goes on...
It's just incompetent.
It's just
and also cynical.
It's just this low budget... Like, it should be. Just this... There's this whole weird subgenre of animation that I think we're all vaguely aware of, but I would like to say bless Phelan Porteous for dedicating a huge portion of his career to just reviewing straight-to-video animated knockoffs of bigger animated movies, because it's a huge market, and I had no idea how big it was.
Oh, no. If you were paying attention to, like, sort of the DVD boom, which happened sort of in the late 90s, I guess, when DVDs first hit, and they became bigger than even the DVD manufacturers thought they were going to become.
Yeah.
Like, they just invaded the marketplace. People loved the DVD format. And all of a sudden, you could go to any grocery store. You could go to 7-Eleven, and you could get DVDs of any film, any big hit film, for pretty cheap.
Yeah.
There was a time during when VHS was really riding high that VHS manufacturers would make tapes out of really hefty materials, and they would give those to rental stores, and those were built to be watched hundreds of times. So they're actually out of really good, high-grade VHS tapes. And if you wanted to buy one of those, it would cost like anywhere from $80 to $150.
Yeah, it was
for a
prohibitive.
single tape because of those heavy materials. And then when they would wait several months, sometimes several years, before they would release a VHS for public consumption, for like consumer grade, and they would be made out of consumer grade materials. They would be lighter and they would last shorter.
Yeah, if you've ever like rented a movie, okay, if you remember renting VHSs, how young are you? Okay, if you don't remember this, but like you would rent a VHS and there would be like, they've been watched so many times that they were popular that the tape would be worn down, and there would be like parts of it that were
stretched.
Yeah, the parts of it that would be kind of hard to watch, and oftentimes some like of the more prurient moments, like
Phoebe Cates taking her top off.
Exactly,
is the most notorious.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High, a great movie that happens to have a scene of toplessness that people enjoyed. That scene in many video stores would be worn down. Yeah. You couldn't see the scene anymore. Because you would watch it over and over again or pause it.
I work with 35mm film. One of my bosses said that without fail, every single print he has gotten of Fast Times at Ridgemont High could be pristine, but there would always be edits on either side of the nude scene. People would always clip it out and put it in a stag reel at some point. They'd throw it on somewhere. That's what a stag reel used to be. They used to just go through the prints, cut out the nude scenes, and just run them together in a loop.
We're way off track. The point is that there was...
When DVDs came out... Back to the DVD conversation. They were immediately made of instantly consumable materials. The rental grade and the consumer grade were the same. And you could get them really fast for real cheap. People snatched up all of these things. It opened up this huge market where you could just... If you were some fly-by-night film studio, you could make whatever you wanted to real fast, put it on DVD, sell it to a local grocery store, you have your movie.
Or buy something from Europe or whatever, quickly redub it, and you're done. It's
you put it in a cardboard sleeve in a drugstore. Some sleepy parent of a toddler is going to say, I just need to distract my kid for 90 minutes. I'll get whatever this is. Oh, look, Titanic. That's hip right now.
And it's animated, so it's probably okay for kids. Great.
It also comes up at this time, which people don't really talk about anymore, with this sort of wave of Titanic knockoffs in the wake of James Cameron's 1997 film.
It was hard to do a Titanic knockoff because one of the appeals of Titanic was its scale.
It was the biggest film of all time,
but not just the biggest, like most successful, but biggest production.
Yeah,
they might as well have just built a Titanic. Like they built a lot of that stuff. It was a huge scale. The size and enormity of the story on screen was part of the appeal.
It really does have some of the best special effects of all time.
And
It really
production
does.
design and everything.
Right.
It's very impeccable. And Hollywood tried to do a couple of big-scale disaster movies with a big romance in them, but I think Pearl Harbor effectively killed that. Like, it's quite bad. It's well shot. I'll give it that. Like, in a vacuum, you can see some of the shots and you're like, oh, I bet that might be a good movie. Like, it had a good trailer, but then you watch it and it's like, wow, this does not work, does it? Titanic kind of was the only movie that can really do this, huh? Like, they really just couldn't figure out, because Titanic is one of those movies where I think there's a lot of backlash against it real fast because it was...
Well, just because it became so popular so quickly.
Partially because it became so popular so quickly. Partially because it was a huge blockbuster that really didn't fit what the blockbuster mold was at the time it came out. The blockbuster mold at the time was action movies.
Well,
and at least animated movies, like big family, huge entertainments. And this was a weepy...
Yeah.
This is a sappy...
Ten hanky movie, as my mom would say.
It's just right there, just hugely forthright, emotional. You're going to cry. We're going to completely wring your emotions through the ringer. That's the whole movie. And I think a lot of people, a lot of boys in particular, were just not having it. It was from James Cameron, who made all the best action movies. We didn't know what to make of it. I don't know what... People had their own reasons, but there was backlash. And I rewatched Titanic a couple of years ago. Titanic is great. Titanic has some clunky dialogue, and there's a couple of bits that don't work. As a whole, Titanic is a fantastic epic.
It may be like one of the high points of pop filmmaking.
Yeah.
In terms of what Hollywood has sort of come to be known as, that's what Titanic represents. It kind of reached a crest with Titanic. And I think when you're talking about the backlash from teenage boys, you'll notice a similar backlash from anything that becomes super popular that's for girls. Think of something like Twilight, or even 50 Shades of Grey. It's like, this is just pop trash.
Neither of which are as well crafted as Titanic, but still, it's a similar backlash.
Yeah,
You're right. Yeah.
Just what girls can't have, like a really popular romance. Oh, I'm sorry, it has to be all like superheroes punching each other.
There's a concept going through the critical community right now, and I'm going to see if I can find out who coined the term, because I want to make sure they get credit. Because we've all heard about the male gaze, the idea that certain stories, particularly movies, because it's visual, are told from a male perspective, and not just a male, but a very masculine perspective that often objectifies women, for example. But like,
and the objectification of women is only one element. Just that sort of vaunting of of combat and violence as a solution to all problems is something that comes out of this kind of macho, this masculine gaze that you're talking about.
But what someone has coined recently, and I want to make sure I get it right, so I'm going to, after I stop talking, I'm going to look, is the male glance.
Male glance.
The male glance is a great critical term, and I think we need to start using it more often, which is the potential and the common practice of sort of looking at stories told from a female perspective or for a female audience and writing them off as chick flicks. And that's like, I glanced at it. I got everything I need. No, that you take that as seriously as anything else. May or may not be good, but you need to take that as seriously as anything else. That is the male glance, and that is a great point. We write off a movie like that, and that's a shame, because Twilight is interesting. Maybe it's not good. It's interesting.
It's not good, but it's
really interesting. There's a lot going on.
There's something in there worth looking at.
And Titanic is great. It's great. Again, the dialogue is clunky as shit. I don't care. It's great.
It's been a while since I've seen it. I probably get just as wrapped up in it as the first time. Notice we're doing everything we can to avoid talking about the animated Titanic.
I believe the phrase was coined by Lily Loughborough. At The Guardian.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the case.
You'll notice that
if I'm wrong, someone correct me.
Most of the best film writers working these days are women. Amy Nicholson is one of my favorite film critics right now.
April Wolf.
April Wolf is
Ingo
great.
Kang.
Ingo Kang is great.
Yeah.
Jen Yamato is great.
A lot of great.
Stephanie Zacharek, all of the great film writers right now are all women. Manola Dargis. Turn that off, you.
I don't know why my computer started doing that. It started playing the theme to Manaha, A Man Called Blade.
What? Why?
I don't know. I like that theme. It's great.
Anyway,
it's a great soundtrack.
On to this crappy Italian animated Titanic knockoff.
Okay, so they
forced us to watch.
They made a cheap animated Titanic knockoff. I get it. I get why you did that. You didn't have to make it this bad. This is bad.
They do. So they take the story from Titanic. There's a story from Titanic. Poor man, rich woman, pressured by high society, fall in love, have a romance on the ship of doom. Good story.
Okay.
Fine. This one, gender flips it.
Yep.
Now the woman is the poor one, and she's sort of like, she's Cinderella.
She is Cinderella.
She has two ugly stepsisters and a wicked stepmother.
And the ugly stepsisters are, and this is one of the things that's weird about this movie, most of the characters are like palette swapped characters from other movies. So our heroine, Angelica, who is not Cinderella, but is Cinderella, she's Anastasia from Don Bluth's Anastasia.
More or less.
The wicked stepmother, wicked stepsisters are the wicked mother and stepsisters from Cinderella. We're also going to meet, over the course of this film, the two Dalmatian dogs from 101 Dalmatians.
But Pongo and... Oh, I forgot the...
Oh, I forget. Yeah.
Lady? I forgot. No, that's Lady and the Tramp.
Pogo? Okay. We're gonna meet the two Dalmatian dogs from 101 Dalmatians. We are gonna meet Fievel from American Tail. We're gonna meet not Speedy Gonzalez, but Speedy Gonzalez's sidekicks.
A bunch of Mexican mice who are traveling from England to America.
Yep.
What?
They said they were on tour.
Yeah, all right. Fine.
Yeah, whatever. And I think we have the chef from The Little Mermaid
Yes,
in here.
we do.
Like every single... Nanny. Not Nanny. Granny from Looney Tunes.
Plays a character named Nanny.
Jesus.
And boring McBlonde white man who's just interchangeable handsome prince from whatever Disney film you watch.
Yeah, he looks a little bit... I think he looks most like John Smith from Pocahontas, but whatever.
I think he looks like that boring prince nobody remembers from Sleeping Beauty. The one
Prince Philip.
Prince Philip. The one
I
who
like
slayed
Prince
the
Philip.
dragon. You like Prince Philip?
Yeah, Prince Philip kicks ass. He kills a fucking dragon.
I marry the girl I love. That's all he says.
He says a little bit more than... Listen, he's an underrated character.
Even Sleeping Beauty's boring in that movie. You know who I love? The fairies. The fairy queens are great in that movie.
Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather are basically my favorite characters in all of Disney.
And they're more or less the protagonists of that
They are
film,
the protagonists.
So
they're so great. They're smart. They're funny. They are willing to make huge sacrifices to do the right thing. They help guide a sword to fucking kill a monster. They are great characters, and I'm so mad at what Maleficent did to them. I'm so mad that in making Maleficent a more
sympathetic character,
they
turns
made
them into buffoons.
They made them less sympathetic. Why not both? Why couldn't both work? That's so maddening to me.
Maleficent's so terrible.
It's got good ideas though.
Again, we're not talking about Titanic.
I don't want to talk about Titanic.
Titanic, it's just weird mishmash of a bunch of different elements and a bunch of different films you're familiar with, only suckier. They don't, because they're using all these elements, it's just sort of, kind of recognize that. I think maybe they're banking on recognition, but it's done in this really broadly, badly done animation style. Now, I'll say this for the animation. Forever bad the animation is, forever bad the pacing is, however bad the dubbing is, however bad everything is in terms of its technicals, I liked the character design.
Because they took it from other better movies.
Well, they not necessarily, because I've taken some animation courses, and the way they animated some of the characters, they went off model a lot. That means that they actually bothered to sort of stretch a lot of the characters into interesting ways. Some of the animators were getting bored and did a little bits of interesting things throughout, like the chef scene ripped off from The Little Mermaid. That chef, they put in a lot of detail, and there's a lot of actual character movement that I wouldn't have expected from a movie this cheap.
But the scene is fucking horrible.
Well, the scene is horrible. I'm looking for something good in this, is my point.
I thought you were going to say, no matter how bad the story is, no matter how bad the animation is, no matter how bad the writing is, whatever, that the dubbing is worse. Because the dubbing is, first off, the acting is terrible. Now, this is a European film, probably not intended originally so much for
it was made by an Italian filmmaker with Italian money, but I think it was originally animated and recorded in English with European actors.
I think there might not have been a high sensitivity to what a quality English language performance is. And you can tell because most of the dialogue is the readings are terrible. There's also this weird thing where they repeat lines of dialogue, or they take little bits of lines of dialogue and put it in multiple places with the exact same line reading.
Yeah.
It's super strange. And sometimes they'll do it multiple times in the same scene. For example, I wrote it down. I want to make sure I get this exactly right. So you know the scene in Titanic where the Titanic is sinking, and they're talking about the original one, the James Cameron one. That's not the original Titanic movie, but that's the one.
The James Cameron one, yeah.
That's actually A Night to Remember and Titanic from the 1950s, both really great Titanic movies. Okay, so all of the poor people are not allowed to go up to the top of the shit and get in the lifeboats. And they're like security guards with a gun trying to make sure that they don't get to the lifeboats, which apparently is a huge exaggeration. But like it's great drama. So like it's cool. They do that scene in Titanic, The Legend Goes On, and I'm going to give you the entire performance from the security guard. You can't go through this way. Don't force me to... Okay, sorry. You can't go through this way. Don't force me to resort to violence. Rah, 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 rah. You can't go through this way. Don't force me to resort to violence. Rah, 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 rah. Don't force me to resort to violence. You can't go through this way. Oh my God, have him record it one more time. It's one sentence. Is he getting paid by the word? How does this work?
Oh, God.
It's insanity.
And we both watched this like really late at night.
We watched this at the same time at 2 a.m.
At 2 a.m. on the same.
We were both tweeting about it.
Yeah, it's at the same time. Like, oh, jeez, what are we doing? What is this? Our lives now?
Why do we do this to ourselves?
So yeah, when you're up in the middle of the night watching this in pieces on YouTube because there's no legit release of this. That was the only way a lot of people see these movies.
Yeah.
Like you can get a DVD, but those aren't legit release DVDs.
Yeah.
So yeah, the filmmakers aren't getting the money from those DVDs. But gosh, now that I've seen it, I guess I have to buy it if there's ever a legit release of
That's
this
the rule.
one. That's the rule.
That's the rule.
So I've watched the bootleg. Now I have to watch. Now I have to pay for the real one. That's the rule.
I'll buy it.
I'll buy it too. Too much has been said about it at this point. Not for somebody to get some money.
Yeah. Anyway, so okay.
But yeah, we're kind of hallucinating through these things, and it's the middle of the night. So when they start repeating dialogue, it's like, am I dreaming this now?
And then I just nod off.
Did
and
I
watch the
did I slip through some sort of weird dimensional portal?
So the plot is everyone's going on the Titanic. Angelica has a locket with her mother's picture in it, and the stepmother says, "You will never find your mother. There's no way she's on the Titanic." She might as well have said that. It's so fucking obvious. And then they're all getting on the Titanic, and we meet like a Lothario who's like a gold digger. We meet Molly. We don't specifically say she's the unsinkable Molly Brown, but she's a Molly on the Titanic. I would like to point out that she is very buxom.
Boy, howdy is she ever.
She does not look like Kathy Bates at all. She has the two dogs from 101 Dalmatians. And according to this movie, the unsinkable Molly Brown was Celine Dion.
Yeah.
They combined the unsinkable Molly Brown and Celine Dion.
And she wears the locket, just like Celine Dion did during her tours. I think she's still wearing that now when she performs.
It's the weird thing. And one of the things, like at the end of the movie, you know, like as the band played as the Titanic sank, and it's like so fucking sad. Apparently she sang that whole time too, and she sang like hit pop songs.
Only they're completely forgettable hit pop songs.
Oh my God,
who cares what she's
so
singing?
bad. So everyone's getting on the Titanic, and then we cut to the mice getting on the Titanic, and there's a bunch of Russian Jewish immigrant mice and Mexican mice who are returning home.
Really racist stereotype. Like they wear sombreros and stuff. It's just terrible.
It's really, really bad. And there's this weird bit. So we meet this little Fievel mouse, this young boy mouse, and like the mouse is like dragging a bag, and like something rolls away or whatever, and he runs to get it. And Angelica like picks up something, and there's the mouse behind it, and she says, "Who are you?" Okay.
Yeah, you know, you've seen Cinderella, right? She talked to the mice. She was a little stir crazy.
You don't
cabin fever, talking to the mice.
But here's the deal. It wasn't like, "Oh, who are you, little guy?" It was like a question. It was like,
"What are you doing in here?"
Yeah, who are you? What? And the thing is that
a mouse lady. What do you think?
The animals talk. The humans can't understand them.
No.
If they could, I'd be like, okay, fine, that's fine. We got like an enchanted thing going on here, where that's what she can do, and that's the magical realism, and I'm willing to accept that. Nope, that's just how she greets every animal.
Who are you?
Who are you? And the seagull is just like, "Caw, hi, Carl." Like you don't really like. You can't really. Anyway, they all get on the fucking Titanic.
Caw. Really? Because I thought it was really problematic.
They all get on the Titanic. Angelica loses her locket, and it
ends up in Molly Brown.
An asshole Lothario.
And
here's the thing. And here's basically like until the thing sinks. The majority
until the thing sinks.
The majority of the film is this. Everyone is gold digging everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone is trying to marry someone rich. Everyone thinks everyone else is rich, and almost no one is rich.
You'd think that would be sort of like a theme, but that's just lazy screenwriting.
It sounds like a farce, doesn't it? It sounds like a Shakespeare story.
Like a Moliere would do that.
Yeah, there's something funny about that. But instead, it's just padding the film. It's just, we got to get this to feature length somehow, so we're going to have a whole bunch of people talk about how we all got to get married and stuff, and oh, look at my daughters, and he's just like, I would rather not, because I am superficial. I haven't met them, but they look like the stepsisters from Cinderella, so I assume they're bad. Like, no one has anything
Talk to them. They could be wonderful, scintillating people.
No fucking idea, you fucking asshole. Anyway, moving on. Also, I forgot, there is a detective on board. Detective Bradbury.
Oh, and who goes around in disguise.
For no reason. He starts off...
He also has, like, a dog counterpart. So there's a human detective and a dog detective.
There is... He comes on the ship and he says, I'm undercover, I'm a detective, I'm looking for this gang of pickpockets who will become important later. And he's like, don't tell anyone I'm a detective. I'm in disguise. He's in disguise as Sherlock Holmes. He's wearing the deerstalker. He's got the pipe. And I'm like...
But he has a big mustache, which is not traditionally Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, I apologize. So then we meet, like, our hero, our dopey hero, William, who's a wealthy inheritor, whatever. He's going to build buildings in America.
And he's traveling with his nanny, even though he's an adult.
He's got to be at least in his mid-20s. Yeah. Like, and he keeps calling her nanny and stuff. It's not like she's like, yeah, she's with the family, but forever. It's like, she's nanny from Muppet Babies to him. She's everything. And like,
if he had, like, other younger children around him, that would make sense. It's like, oh, hello, nanny. You were my nanny. Now you're the nanny to these children. You are still nanny.
Yeah. No.
Just he's traveling with an older woman that he calls nanny.
And they as they're unpacking, he's just like, oh, yes, I'm going to exposit for a moment, Nanny. Forgive me. I'm going to go to America, and I'm going to build a bunch of buildings. And Nanny is just like, that's great. I sure miss the daughter I abandoned 18 years ago. I'm sure she's not on the Titanic, Nanny.
Well, I'm going to go, oh, my goodness, look out here in the hallway. There's this poor, pretty 18-year-old girl who looks a lot like Nanny.
And then they meet. And, of course, they meet by bumping into each other, which is the only way people who fall in love meet. Basically, if you're looking for love, just don't look where you're going.
Yeah.
Just walk down crowded streets. Just keep looking at your phone. It helps if you're carrying bundles.
So if you see people staggering down the sidewalk blindfolded, they're just lovelorn.
They bump into each other, and then there's this weird bit where he's telling his nanny about this girl he met and how she's so mysterious. And then he locks eyes with his nanny, and they kind of move closer to each other, and we're just like...
Are you guys going to start making out?
They look like they're going to start making out. It's really weird.
Is this your thing, this weird nanny Titanic fantasy? Like, it's a big complex role play thing?
It's a role-playing ship. That makes more sense now. That's why everyone's dressed up so weird.
It's a role-playing cruise. And they're role-playing the Titanic. It just happened to actually sink.
Okay, so the thing is, though, is that because our poor protagonist is actually, like, she's in, like, the poor people's quarters on the Titanic, but she's, like, closely related to the rich people. We don't really have that thing they had in James Cameron's Titanic, where it's a tale of two cities, where you see both sides simultaneously. So what we have are all the animals are the poor people. They're the stowaways, basically. We're introduced to them. They're unpacking. And there's, like, the rich cat and dog are hunting them. So, themes. And there's one shirt that says themes.
Okay, Branna, you don't want to talk makeup? Fine, we'll talk theme.
So they get rescued from being eaten. The mouse gets rescued from being eaten by a dog in a Titanic T-shirt. He's got a shirt that says T with a T on it, so you know he's on the Titanic.
Well, he doesn't have it yet.
It pops up eventually.
He's just a dog in a collar, and he saves the Russian immigrant mice from a cat.
Yeah, and then they say thank you.
Thank you, and he says, "Well, it's okay. I'm like the police. I'm the investigator police dog. I make sure all the animals are safe on the Titanic." And they say thank you, and then he raps. And that's when his shirt appears. And then he starts strolling through like a miniature cityscape with a boombox.
Not a boombox. It's an old-timey radio that he carries on his shoulder like a boombox. Because it's a period piece.
Forgive me.
They're really concerned about it being a period piece.
And also he wears basketball shorts and like big sneakers and a backward baseball cap. And there was a big blood stain on my wall. And I realized it was I was slamming my head against it.
Here's the thing. There's two, okay, we didn't really talk about this, and we're not going to get into it too much detail. There are two versions of Titanic: The Legend Goes On.
Two different dubs, as it were.
The one that we want to track down is we want to track down the original version is in chronological order. which you'd think wouldn't be a problem, but okay. It's in chronological order, and it's longer. It's about an hour and a half. There is a shorter version that is kind of more notorious in America. It's the one that was made more available here. It is told somewhat out of order, like it starts with the Titanic sinking and then goes back to a flashback.
Yeah.
Whatever. The thing that I find most interesting is that even though the vocal performances are basically the same in both, there's two different versions of the rap. And we're going to play you a clip from each. Okay?
The lead into each one, because they are slightly different.
We have to tell you this.
And they're equally outrageous.
Okay, so the original Italian version, all right, actually makes a modicum of sense. At least as a construct.
Oh, does it?
Because the dog is at least introducing himself.
That's true.
The dog is like, because a lot of characters will have that, like I'm O'Malley the Alley Cat from Aristocats or whatever, Oh, by the way, the geese from Aristocats are in this.
That's
remember?
Right, the geese. Jesus Christ. All right. Jesus Christ.
God,
I'm sorry I did that.
All right, so the kid says, thank you for saving me from the cat. And the dog goes,
well, from now on, try not to strike out on your own without checking with me first. Because, you see, I'm responsible for how the animals behave on this...
Me. Tell me, do you know? Do you really know? Do you know it, yes or no? Is it yes or is it no? Do you know who I really am? I'm the boss, and I command. I direct the band. Stop it if you're breathing. Princess here, it's time for breathing, because instead of being a hero, you might become a zero.
Okay. Now, in the more American version...
where they redubbed the rap.
The kid will say, thank you for saving me from the cat, and the dog goes off on a complete non sequitur about partying.
Just launches. Like, he doesn't even introduce himself.
There's no reason
begins
for
the
it.
rap.
Just imagine you're having a conversation with literally anybody, and then this happens. Hey, Witney, what did you have for lunch today?
There's something you should know, so I'm gonna tell you so. Don't sweat it, forget it, enjoy the show. Working all day, now it's time to unwind. Kick back, relax, take a load off your mind. I'll be busting the moves and I'll be busting the rhymes. We'll be busting up laughing cause it's party time. Everybody's feeling fine cause it's party time. Party time, party time. Everybody's feeling fine cause it's party time. Party time, party time. Everybody's feeling fine cause it's party time. Party time.
Yeah.
What in the hell is the matter with you? Jesus Christ.
I feel like there's like an early Errol Morris documentary about a guy like that, who would just like sort of wander around a small town in Northern California, who would answer every single question you asked him with some long, complex rap, and we're gonna like explore this guy's strange life and the quirky home where he lives, and realize that he's on the outside, but kind of a genius. It's like a fast, cheap, and out of control sort of thing.
Yeah, like you almost respect him for it, but it means nothing. It's outsider art in its greatest form. The dog is not that. The dog is just the dog on the Titanic. At one point, he organizes a search party to help that lady find her locket. And they do.
And all of the animals band together to find the locket, and they find it.
At one point, a mouse goes into the kitchen in order to find food. Because it's a mouse, and that's what it would do.
And René Aubergenois is there.
René Aubergenois is there. He's singing about Les Mises.
Mm-hmm. I hate those Mises to pieces.
But here's the thing, and there's a whole wacky, like, slapsticky bit where the mouse is running around and the chef gets in trouble or anything like that. They murder that chef. Like, that is not like comedy violence. The chef is on fire and it's horrifying, and it's it's really terrible what happens to the chef. And he's not even doing anything terrible.
His sleeve catches on fire. A waiter enters, see that his sleeve is on fire, says, "Oh no, I will pour some liquid on him." Grabs the closest liquid to him, which is a bottle of whiskey.
Of course.
Which is a gag I saw in like Police Academy 5. This is
oldest gag in the universe.
Old gag. Yeah, pours it on him, catches on fire, he dies. Then they eat his corpse in a bloody, horrific, macabre dinner.
I assume that's what happened. At that point, I passed out from insanity. My God!
No, you passed out, Lucky.
All right. Let's find our bearings here. Okay.
So... There's the big reveal at the end is that the Angelica and the nanny were on the same lifeboat, and it turns out Nanny is Angelica's mom, and it was not a surprise at all.
We all fucking knew that. There's also a gang of thieves.
You mentioned the pickpockets.
There's a gang of pickpockets with like an evil lady and her two pickpocket sidekicks, and And that actually goes nowhere.
It's just more of the movie.
It's never a thing. I imagine it would be important later. I lied. It's not. It's just padding. You cut them out of the movie entirely, and there's only like one moment that wouldn't make sense.
If some enterprising, low-budget animation filmmaker were to make a film, like a romance-type film, that was reminiscent of the big Disney hits of the time and, ripped off a lot of the characters, that would be one thing. But that you set it on the Titanic in the wave of James Cameron's Titanic popularity adds a layer of complete and utter cynicism to this film that is already batshit crazy, which makes it, if this is even possible, all the more intolerable, because there's not even a whiff of honesty or like outsider passion behind underneath all of that.
It's weird because they want to do, obviously they're doing Titanic. They have to do Titanic. They don't want to kill anybody. And in fact, the only character in the movie who clearly dies is Molly. That's it. She's the only one. Everyone else makes it off the boat and survives and has a happy ending. No matter how evil they were. Like, they all have a happy ending.
They even get, like, an Animal House-style montage at the end where we see what happened to all of them.
Like, the boat's, like, sailing away or something like that, and I'm just like, I don't know how that works. And then, like, the mouse just says, hey, where are you going? Don't you want to find out what happened to everybody?
The boats are sailing away, and the animals are saved by friendly dolphins.
Oh, the animals are friendly dolphins. I'm not sure how that works, but okay. I feel like there's something I'm forgetting.
Anyway, what happened to everybody?
As the ship goes down. I wonder what happened to my poor tiger. You had a tiger on board? No, it was the name of my dog. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Just shut up. Shut up.
Stop strangling me. I'm not the movie.
The first officer is on one of the lifeboats, and his only job is to scream at everyone not to save anybody because maybe it might be bad.
I think I seem to recall a scene where our hero William was standing like inside a ballroom. It's like, well, the ship's going down. I'm really sad. And it's like, he can just leave. I don't know why. He's standing there. And he's like, no, wait a minute. I don't have to die. And he picks up a chair and he breaks a window and walks through it. The door was right over there.
Okay, so moving on. Everyone gets their happy ending. Obviously, Angelica and William end up together. That's great. The cook hires the mice.
Ratatouille hadn't come out yet.
Ratatouille
so this was
ripped it off. Total shameless ripoff.
So Pixar's not creative.
Detective Bradbury hires other people's dogs as his assistants, and in the process of being rescued and pulled on a boat, they pull off his hair, and now he's Kojak. He's got the lollipop and everything. My favorite one of these, though, because there's a little kid saying this, like, okay, so then the Detective Bradbury, he ended up with the lollipop and quit smoking and blah, 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 blah. Like, I get it. He's Kojak. Thank you. No kid's going to get that in 2000, but all right.
Because kids love Kojak.
Kids love Kojak. Kojak was a TV detective who did that. He was bald. He had a lollipop because he was trying to quit smoking. That's it. That's the whole joke.
He's played by Telly Savalas, and he's a great character.
It's a great character. It's a good show. I'm just saying that's all you need to know the joke. That's it. But my favorite one is the gold digger Gaston. He becomes an old lady's. And here's what that. He became a cook, babysitter, butler, gardener, etc. Blah. Like, they left in blah. Like, the kid just, like, messed up the line.
So they just leave it in.
And they just left it in, like, fuck it, I don't care. And then it ends with, A, the implication that everyone who isn't mentioned died horribly because it's the Titanic. But B, the kid says, okay, bye for now, see you soon. I'm like, I don't know you. Better not see you soon. I don't want more Titanic.
See you soon when we're all going to go for a ride on the Hindenburg.
Now, there is another Titanic. An animated Titanic.
There's two others.
The other one's a sequel to this one, to the other one. That's bad in a different way. That one implicates that the sinking of the Titanic was an inside job perpetrated by mafia sharks.
Yeah, they bribed the iceberg.
Yeah, yeah, more or less. Yeah, that one's also bad. You picked this one. I think this one's worse. This is some really hard to watch because, again, there are different kinds of bad. There's bad in its construct. There's bad in its purpose. There's bad, and then there's bad incompetent. And this is all of them except for bad. This is terrible. This is an endurance test of a movie.
It's assertively shrill.
Yeah.
It is just badly made, badly edited. The sound is just difficult to listen to. It's so badly recorded. And the story is so muddled and so like jagged that trying to apply your mind to it like the way you would an ordinary feature film just hurts your brain. Yeah, trying to trying to consume this film in the way that you would an ordinary film it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So when it comes time to pair this, we're not really sure what to do. I mean, it's so incompetent. We can't really find something to like latch on to.
There's no like theme. There's no like anything. Like it's
we could have done Titanic, but we're not going to do Titanic.
Super
it's too
obvious, and you've seen it. So like we can't say anything about Titanic that you haven't already heard or that we haven't already said. It's fine. It's a great movie. There you're going to go. So we batted this around a bit, and then what we realized was if Titanic: The Legend Goes On has anything on its mind at all, it's just conning people out of money.
One of the things that happens most commonly in this movie is there's people trying to con you out of money on a ship.
Well, one of the best movies ever made does that. It's a movie called The Lady Eve. It is written and directed by the great Preston Sturges in 1941. It stars Barbara Stanwyck and Henry Fonda. If you are not a fan of Preston Sturges, you probably don't know who Preston Sturges is. Preston Sturges is one of the great comedy filmmakers ever.
Yeah, he took the ship was pushed out by It Happened One Night, which was Frank Capra's film from the early 30s,
which is one of the only only 3 films to win the Academy Awards for Best Picture, Director, Actor, Actress, and Screenplay.
That's right, and it set the template for all romantic comedies that you've ever seen.
Yeah, there were other romances that were comedies before It Happened One Night, but It Happened One Night is all of the cliches. When you watch It Happen One Night, you're like, oh, this whole movie is full of cliches. It invented all the cliches. All of them. They were invented on the set of It Happened One Night, and people have been just reusing them ever since.
And they still work.
They still work great.
Yeah, still work. Just maintain that machine. But there was this big wave of those types of screwball romances that started with It Happened One Night. Ernst Lubitsch did those. George Cukor did those. And Preston Sturges is one of sort of the reigning kings.
And when you look at Preston Sturges' career, I love Preston Sturges because all of his films, even the ones that aren't as good as the others, they're all interesting. Like, he makes odd choices that really kind of make you reevaluate the whole romantic comedy concept a lot of the time.
I think his strength is character. He knows how to stage a romance with characters who are who are stronger than their story. They're not swept up by their circumstances, they're controlling their circumstances. And that is certainly the case of Barbara Stanwyck.
Oh my god, yeah.
Who controls every damn thing in this movie, including the male lead who has nothing to do with anything in this story-wise.
Barbara Stanwyck is one of the great movie stars.
Yes.
Period.
Yes,
End of sentence. Era, gender, doesn't matter. She is absolutely in control. Every single film she's ever in. She's in my favorite movies. Christmas in Connecticut. She was in Double Indemnity. She's a genius. And in The Lady Eve, the plot is Barbara Stanwyck is a con artist, and she's going to seduce Henry Fonda and take his money.
Henry Fonda is an heir to a beer fortune. He doesn't care about beer, but he does like snakes.
Loves snakes. When we first meet him, he's in the Amazon acquiring a rare snake that he's going to take from the Amazon and bring to America for research.
He doesn't have much in the way of a personality, and that's part of the point. Yeah. He just like snakes. He keeps his head down. He doesn't talk to ladies a lot.
He's aware that people are trying to seduce him. He has one of the great things about Ernst Lubitsch, and he reuses a lot of the same stock players, is Ernst Lubitsch doesn't just cast his leads. He casts the whole movie full of characters.
You mean Sturges? You said Lubitsch.
I did. You're right. I'm an asshole. Preston Sturges, look at all of his movies, all of the supporting characters, no matter, even if they have one line of dialogue, are interesting characters.
Yeah.
So he's got so we have Henry Fonda as Charles Pike. This is not measly. What am I talking about? Milquetoast.
Boring
guy. But he's got this really fascinating sidekick character, Muggsy Murgatroyd, played by William Demarest, the amazing William Demarest, who is just fucking great. He's gravelly and he talks like this.
Should have named my son Muggsy Murgatroyd.
Muggsy Murgatroyd, one of the great names. Yeah, so he's the guy who just doesn't trust this lady, but Henry Fonda, of course, falls in love with her. And the plot of the movie is she falls in love with him, as happens at every con artist ever. They always fall in love with their marks, and they always give up the life and just live happily ever after.
Or did they? Yeah, that's the big con.
Well, fair enough.
Here's what I love about it, though. She falls in love with him kind of against her better judgment.
Sure.
She knows that this is not a good idea. She also forces him to fall in love with her. She is manipulating this guy from step one. There's nothing organic about the way he falls in love with her. He falls in love with her because she's arranged it.
Yeah.
He is such like this milquetoast guy. He has no, and I understand why he's attracted to her. She's made herself that attractive, and she's that resolute. She's just an appealing human being.
Yeah.
And she's made herself that appealing, and she's made sure that he's fallen in love with her. She's in control of his emotions 100%. She's got her fingers in his puppet.
Well,
and she falls in love with him kind of because he's innocent and he's knowledgeable.
He's really genuine. He's genuine.
And when she falls in love with him, she instantly resents that. Like it's her one moment of weakness, and she spends the rest of the film getting back at him. For getting to her. It's kind of a revenge story.
Oh, it absolutely is a revenge story. No, this is a story about a woman who completely is in control of her life and the lives of everyone else around her. She's that capable. She's that independent. And she loves this guy. She loves him against her will, but she falls in love with the guy. And then she's going to tell him everything. This started off as a con job, whatever, but they're stuck on a ship, and she's stuck on a ship with her other two con artists, and she agrees with them.
Who recently conned him out of $32,000 in 1941 dollars.
Yeah, which is nothing to him.
Which is like $1 million.
And it's nothing to him. That's the whole gag. So they're on a ship. So if she admits she's a con artist, there's a chance they could get arrested. So she's like, I'll wait until you're off the ship. Before the ship lands, Muggsy finds out that they're con artists, and he finds a way to make sure our hero, not our hero, our Patsy.
He's not really a hero.
Our Patsy finds out, and of course his heart is broken. And he tells her, and she's like, I was going to tell you. And then he says, fucking liar, which again, she is too, but he's the one doing it specifically to hurt her. He says, I knew all along, and I led you on. And the implication is that they've slept together.
Yeah.
The implication is that
there's a scene where she's seducing him by saying, "Oh, let's go back to your room. Let's have a few drinks. I feel so safe with you." It's like that's 1940. That's sex.
Yeah.
In a 1941
and then of course there's a
movie.
snake in the bed, and she runs because she didn't think it was a real snake, and then and he's chasing her down the hallways.
There's a snake in the bed,
right?
Yeah.
There's a scene on the ship before all the lies have been revealed. Actually, the lies are never all revealed.
No,
it's
they're
great.
not. They're not.
Lady Eve, the lies are never entirely revealed. But
because she's in control. She only wants him to know as many lies as she says. He doesn't find out anything.
Yeah, and if you think
Muggsy gives him information, she gives him information. That's all he does. He just absorbs all this stuff.
And I want to make it clear here that this is also a very brilliant deconstruction of the entire romantic comedy genre, most of which is based around deception.
It's true,
it's basically sort of saying it's all deception anyway. It's all a matter of are you doing it to hurt somebody, or are you doing it for other reasons? And that's the whole point. So where was I going? So they're in the bedroom, and she's scared because of the snake, and he's comforting her, and she is on the bed reclining like Cleopatra, and he is on his knees next to her like Cleopatra's underling, feeding her grapes or whatever, and it's just them just getting closer and more intimate and more intimate, and then she sends him home to take the coldest shower anyone has ever taken. It's fantastic. So he breaks her heart, a million pieces. And but
it re-solidifies real fast.
Yeah.
And she says, "You know what? I got another plan."
Yeah. Now, you know what?
Now I'm pissed off.
I'm gonna fucking get that guy.
I'm gonna fleece this asshole.
Because she was the con artist, he was the asshole. So her plan is
to con him again.
To con him again in a way that would make Shakespeare jealous. It's so well handled.
So she disguises herself as a rich British socialite. Oh gosh, who's the actor who plays the other British con man?
Oh, I'm gonna look it up because he's great.
He's a really great. He was in a lot of the Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers films.
I want to say
Sic Transit Glory.
Melville Cooper.
Yeah, Sic Transit Glory Mondays. Yeah, he's really fantastic.
He was in Adventures of Robin Hood and Rebecca, and he's great.
Yeah, great 30s and 40s supporting player. He's probably some in a lot of movies.
Absolutely. So there's this guy, and he's got like this house in the Hamptons, and he's pretending to be a rich British guy, and he's basically just found this great con where all he has to do is be in that society, and he can just quietly grift everybody all the time. Never too much all at once. He's got a great deal going, and she's like, and it turns out Henry Fonda's family is there.
It runs in those circles.
So she's like, can you introduce me to high society as like your rich niece from Europe?
And I love the introduction of Henry Fonda's father, who's like just this fat cigar chomping guy. Where's my breakfast?
Okay, Eugene Pallett plays Mr. Pike.
So wonderful.
Eugene Pallett, he played Friar Tuck in The Adventures of Robin Hood. He was in Mrs. Goes to Washington, My Man Godfrey. Also one of the great character actors. He's amazing. He's like he sounds like he sounds like he's like someone's grinding gravel in his body. Like he's just like, yeah, where's my breakfast? Like he's so funny.
He sounds like he's doing a voice when really he was just like a career smoker. I expected eggs and my egg plate is empty. And he like picks up a bell and he rings it angrily. Where's my waiter?
I love what
he's like a human cartoon. He's just fantastic.
And he's rich, and he plays Henry Fonda's rich dad, and he picks up the first thing. His introduction is he walks down a stairway, and he picks up a ringing phone, and he's just like, "What? No, I'm not going to a party tonight. Oh, there's a party at my house.
Oh, I'm throwing it.
Oh, well, when is it? Ah, thanks. I'll see you there."
Yeah.
just show you just how out of touch he is and how harmless. So she gets introduced to high society, and she's introduced to Henry Fonda, and here's the beauty of her disguise. She isn't in disguise.
She tricks him by not putting on a disguise, and he looks at her as like, but this can't possibly be this obvious.
There's no way you would do this. There's no possible way
and you would
be so brazen as to just walk in and say nothing.
He goes back to Muggsy. He's like, she looks really similar. He's like, it's the same woman, you asshole.
And he's like, no. If it was the same woman, she'd put on a wig or she'd disguise herself somehow, right? And he's like, it's her. It looks just like her. It's like, you don't understand women. And I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. So he ends up falling in love with Barbara Stanwyck all over again.
With an even more elaborate lie.
He uses the same lines. Did you notice that?
Yes, I did.
When they have this romantic moment, like in Titanic, on like the front of the ship, the wind whipping, and he tells this story about how I looked in the distance and you were far away and close up, all at the same time, 2 points in the forest and blah. And then they have the same moment, but overtaking like a cliff, like as they're like horseback riding, and he gives her the same bullshit line, and you realize he is such an asshole.
Just like something out of a Hitchcock movie, like she's gonna push him off that cliff.
Oh my God, I would. Like, holy shit, what a dick. So he gets her to marry her.
He agrees to marry her, and they go on their honeymoon on a train, and she begins to have that wonderful scene. They parodied this in The Critic really brilliantly, where she begins to talk about, well, and it turns out you weren't my first love, and I married some other people, and I had some other lovers. And of course, the litany ends up going on and on and on and on.
Okay, so like at first, she admits she had an affair with like a stable boy at her, and this is all bullshit made up, of course, but she had
you can tell she's doing it just to piss him off at that point. He's getting more and more pissed off.
This was the plan. Yeah. This was the plan. So the idea is, she is doing to him what he did to her, which is just leading her on. Or at least that's what he said he did. And so now that it's their honeymoon night, she says, I had a stable boy. We ran off together once. It was funny. I romanticized it a little bit, but it's okay. I'm totally over and he's fine. And he's hurt because, he thought she was going to be a virgin and everything like that.
And so she thinks that's going to be it.
Oh, no, she doesn't. She knows. Because like he goes off for a bit and he has to think and it's hard. And then he's just like, okay, look, I need to be the bigger man here. I feel a little betrayed, but you were young. And
again, it's dumb that one should feel betrayed by such a thing.
But he does.
Modern age, but
it's the society at the time. But here's the thing: Preston Sturges manages to turn
that on ear a little bit.
What he does is a great line of dialogue, because that's an idea that I think a lot of people in the audience probably sympathize with, feeling betrayed by that at the time. But he throws in one line of dialogue that makes Henry Fonda an asshole again, because he was just like, oh, you were 16, you were a 16-year-old girl, which basically makes you an idiot. And I'm like, oh my God, you fucking dick, you deserve everything she's about to do to you. And then she starts giving him the speech of everyone she's ever fucked, and it goes on, and there is a montage, and it ends with him like jumping off the train like to get away from this woman who betrayed him. It's amazing. And then he completely loses it, and he ends up going back on a ship again and leaving the world forever, and he runs into Barbara Stanwyck playing the original version of herself. And now he's just like, okay, you're so much better than that other you. Who is, by the way, he's been fed some line about how they might be long lost identical twins.
Yeah, well, it's like he was beginning to get suspicious. This is the same woman. Oh no, her father used to run in these other circles and had this illegitimate child, and that's who you ran into. It's like, oh well, now this makes sense.
Now that makes perfect sense. Everything falls into place.
Henry Fonda is like such a wonderful simp. Like he may as well be no one. Like you got Henry Fonda, he's a big star. He
was huge at the time.
You could literally replace him with like a Jimmy Stewart or just some guy.
I think he's perfect for this.
Well, he's perfect for this because he plays that kind of nothing character so well.
It's interesting because...
But again, I love that he is a nothing character.
You look at Henry Fonda, you look at him in The Grapes of Wrath, you look at him in The Oxbow Incident or Once Upon a Time in the West. He's one of the great actors. He's amazing. And he can bring so much to a character. And his job here is not to.
Yeah.
And that's a tough gig. And I guess...
There's a great story that... Jack Lemmon tells about working with Billy Wilder that I think about a lot, where he does the scene and Jack Lemmon does it, the way Jack Lemmon does it. And then Billy Wilder says, cut, less. I need less from you, Jack Lemmon. So he does it like a little more subdued. And he says, cut, less. I underplay. And like after maybe 6 or 8 takes, it's like he just sort of gives it as subtly as he possibly can. And Billy Wilder says, cut, I need less from you. And Jack Lemmon finally says, what do you want? Nothing? And evidently, Billy Wilder just like has an expression like, yeah, could you? Like, could you give me nothing? That's what I want from you, is nothing. And that's the role Henry Fonda is asked to play. He's asked to play nothing. And that's difficult to do for an actor who wants to take it big and find the real emotions in there, not really realizing that his character is a prop for Barbara Stanwyck.
Yeah. And that's amazing because you think about how many movies you've seen in which, a woman in particular is just used as a prop for the story. Yeah. She's just the love interest, like in any action movie from the 90s or whatever.
You play the girl. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like horrible. And here in 1941, Preston Sturges flipped that completely the fuck around. And it's great. And you said, and I think you're right about this, but I think there's more to it than that. You said that Preston Sturges... Like I think he said that brings James Preston Sturges as characters. Like that's like that's a huge part of what he
takes a familiar setup, but he makes such interesting characters that he changes the setup with the strength of his characters.
And yet, I think that's true, and I think that's why a lot of his films are placed so perfectly today because the characters are so rich, and at a time when they weren't always, which is also true for now. But I think his ideas and his setups are so fucking strong. and this is an adaptation, but he's done a lot of brilliant setup comedies. A great one, Hail the Conquering Hero.
I haven't seen that. I've actually seen precious little Preston Sturges.
Hail the Conquering Hero
I've seen Sullivan's Travels.
Sullivan's Travels is a classic. Hail the Conquering Hero, just to go in order, Hail the Conquering Hero is a story about a guy who went off to World War II, couldn't go to the front line because he had perpetual hay fever. So he's been like doing stockroom stuff in like California the whole time, helping the war effort, doing what he could do, but nothing heroic. But he's been so embarrassed that he's been saying he's been doing real things, and now he's off. Now he's been let go of the army and he's got to go home and he doesn't know what to do. And so a bunch of Preston Sturges stock character types who are real soldiers say, we're going to go home with you and we're going to talk up your legend and it's going to be fine. And then it gets way out of hand and they start making him run for governor and it's insane and it's great. And it's just like the lie can never be revealed. It always gets worse. It's this great engine of comedy. My favorite high concept, like just incredibly bizarre concept Preston Sturges film is The Palm Beach Story. The Palm Beach Story begins at the ending of a different movie. It ends at the end of a very screwball comedy with like the two leads are like in a car chase to get to the wedding, and like people are like tied up in closets and everything, and it's just nothing but energy and momentum.
I have seen this one too. It's just been a long time.
It's super It's a brilliant way to end it, and it just ends with the two romantic leads in the film getting married, and then it zooms out, like through like a heart shaped.
Iris out,
like, but it's like physically made. Zooms out, and they lived happily ever after. Or did they? And then it cuts to like a year later, and they're in love, and they're married, but they're poor. and then she gets this great idea where, here's the problem. You're married to me. It's a difficult situation because, I'm taking up all your time, and you've got this great idea to build airports on top of cities on a big net, which is the stupidest idea I've ever heard in my life. So what her plan is, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to seduce a rich guy, and I'm going to get him to invest in your future. And he's like, that's a stupid idea. And she's like, I don't care.
I'm doing it anyway.
It's okay. And Sullivan's Travels is a story about
a screenwriter
and a director. He's Preston Sturges, basically. He's built his whole career on screwball comedies and action movies and fluff entertainment, and he wants to do a serious movie called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Which is where the Coen Brothers movie comes from. And his whole thing is he wants to make a movie about the real human condition and real human suffering. The problem is he doesn't know anything about that because he's a rich Hollywood type.
So he becomes a hobo.
Yeah, he dresses up as a hobo and tries to live the hobo life, and he runs into Veronica Lake, who is fucking great and everything, and he learns about what it's like to be a hobo, and then everything goes horribly wrong. And it has a wonderful point to it that I'm not going to ruin for you. You should see Sullivan's Travels. It's a classic. Preston Sturges is one of the great auteur filmmakers at a time when they weren't making auteur filmmakers.
And I was really glad to chase Titanic with something just so refreshing and great and
frothy.
One of the pinnacles of just sort of that era of American filmmaking, which I feel I'm kind of weak on generally.
Oh yeah, the 40s?
Really? The classic golden era of Hollywood.
I finally found your weak spot.
That's kind of my weak spot.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I've seen a lot from that era, but I feel like it's not my era of expertise.
I grew up watching those with my mom. So that's a good
if you go to a foreign country's new wave, I'm all over it. Japanese new wave, I'm there. Ingmar Bergman, I'm there. But yeah, actually here in America was when I was not quite there.
I will say this: if you make the Lady Eve your introduction to Preston Sturges, which there's no bad introduction to Preston Sturges, I think, but the thing you should know is that he's made funnier movies. The Lady Eve actually doesn't have that many thigh slappers in it. It's actually like a very light comedy. It's a comedy because it's not a tragedy.
Yeah.
It's a comedy because the tone is light. Henry Fonda has more pratfalls in one scene in this movie than most actors get their whole career. He does them great. But seriously, it's not like Hail the Conquering Hero is so much funnier. Just this unbelievably funny. This is a light movie, but it is a sexy movie. It is a romantic movie. It is a thoughtful movie. It has a lot to say about its genre, about its characters, about the expectations we have of romance and honesty. And it's great. And The Legend of Titanic Goes On, or whatever the fuck it was, sucked.
Titanic, The Legend Goes On.
Yeah. In the ongoing war between the Lady Eve and Titanic, The Legend Goes On, the Lady Eve, once again, comes out on top.
The Lady Eve stepped in Titanic, The Legend Goes On, and then threw that pair of shoes away. It doesn't want to have anything to do with that.
No more shoes. And that is critically acclaimed.
Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. We actually don't have a lot of time because this episode's late already. We're all screwed for time. We owe you all a proper a lot of letters.
Good long letters episode. Thank you for writing in. We still have your letters.
And you can email us criticallyacclaimedfans@gmail.com. We're not going to get to any today.
No,
we have to move on. But we will do more next week, and we apologize for that. Before we go, next week we will be reviewing Tomb Raider, the new one, and a new World War I drama, Journey's End, and possibly more. We will see. The new Benji is coming out. We'll review that as well.
But isn't that's a movie, not a TV series?
It's a movie on it's a movie on Netflix.
All right.
Okay, but your next poll, which you can vote in, you can pick the notoriously bad film for us to review on this program. All your options for next week's poll, which you can find on the Schmoville ! Facebook page, are kind of outsider cinema. They're not studio films.
They were made independently by people who were not filmmakers.
And people who just really thought they'd be a good idea. And most of them have a really bad reputation.
Kind of as a result.
Yeah, and that's the reason why people know about them. So we're going to talk about one of the following films. You're going to vote for the one you want us to review. Witney, you've seen this one and I haven't. Tell them a quick 2 sentences about See Me Dance.
See Me Dance is a film about a young girl. She's a dancer, she's Christian, and she's trying to get the message out. And she has a dream and she wakes up with cancer. That's what the C in See Me Dance stands for. But it also gives her the superpower to convert people to Christianity by touching them.
Yeah! Wait, that's a problem. Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay, next we got Dancing, It's On, which is a story about a young girl who goes to her...
Dancing, It's On.
No, Dancing.
Dancing, It's On.
With an apostrophe.
Like,
There's no colon or anything.
It's just a poetic way of saying it's on dancing. Dancing, it's on. Because there's no colon, there's no comma. It's just dancing, it's on.
But there is an exclamation point, so you're yelling it. Dancing, it's on!
Dancing, it's on.
Dancing, it's on!
Dance, and it's on.
Anyway, it's about a girl who goes to her father's hotel, falls in love with one of like the waiters, and they enter a dance competition. But it's not Step Up Revolution, and it does think it's Romeo and Juliet, but with more stilt walkers. Moving on.
It's a dance movie, and I love dance movies.
I do too, but man, everything I've seen of this one, it's building up a legend as one of the worst new movies ever made. No. And next up, Dangerous Men, which is hard to describe.
If you vote for it, we'll describe it.
Dangerous Men is like a movie that gets bored with itself every 5 minutes and becomes a completely different movie.
It took about 20 years to make. It did have a theatrical run. And I was there. So I'll get to share my experiences if you vote for that one.
Next up, Deathbed, The Bed That Eats. And not, I would like to make it clear, Patton Oswalt, Deathbed, The Bed That Eats People.
That is the incorrect title, Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt has a whole bit about Deathbed, The Bed That Eats People. That's what it does, but that's not the title. And he has a whole bit about how the existence of this movie makes his entire creative career harder. Because someone thought a movie about a bed that eats people, that's the whole movie. That was a good idea. They wrote it, they finished it, and they fucking made it. And it makes it hard for him to write anything.
Because somebody pushed through on that one.
Yeah, every time you have writer's block, someone made Deathbed. It's one of the weirdest horror movies ever made. I would love to talk about it. And then lastly, dare we dip into the fabulous world of Neil Breen.
Oh, no.
Fateful Findings, which is your typical conspiracy-laden superpower.
Neil Breen wrote, directed, and stars as a brilliant author / computer hacker who's been finding out about all of the corruption and secrets in Hollywood, and is also being haunted by like the ghost of his dead wife. I think it's difficult to tell.
I've seen it and I have no idea. No idea. I could not tell you. I remember the whole speech against like a green screen where he tells all of the people in the world that I've discovered the conspiracies that go on. You've got a conspiracy and you've got a conspiracy.
He doesn't say what the conspiracies are, just that they have them.
And then every like rich or important person in the world kills themselves simultaneously
on TV.
It's amazing. Those are your options. They're all going to be a real treat. So by all means, go to the Schmoeba Facebook page and sign up. Let us know what you want. So we apologize for this episode being late. Next episode won't be. And we'll be back next week with reviews of all that stuff.
And more letters.
And you can follow me on Twitter at William Bibbiani.
I'm at Witney Seibold.
And don't forget to check out our other podcast, Canceled Too Soon, where we review television series that lasted only one season or less. On that program, all this month, we're reviewing TV shows about cops with robot partners. We just did Future Cops, starring Ernest Borgnine, who is a cop with a robot partner. Next week, this coming Wednesday or Thursday, we've got Condor, starring Ray Wise from Twin Peaks as a human cop with a robot partner.
Imagine that.
What? Madness. Everybody, thank you very much for listening, and never forget, everyone's a critic.
I want to go to the midnight show. I'm sorry, what?